Chapter 1259. Although Chi said that, his eyes were fixed on the outside. The wild rabbit meat was really good. He didn't know how good this girl was at cooking it, but he didn't want to waste this delicacy. In the past few years, his taste buds had been so bland that he had never seen anyone who dared to put so much seasoning in front of him. Was this girl really a doctor? Among those doctors, there is indeed a disciple of the Jing family. However, the Jing family has been in decline for a long time. Now, that person is considered an honored guest of the Li family, not a small disciple. It's different. The confidant explained. Regarding the matters between these aristocratic families, even if he didn't want to know, he would still know some rumors. Then he's a traitor. Chi said, his tone difficult to distinguish. Traitors, he hated traitors the most. If this was on the battlefield, he would be a traitor. The confidant naturally knew Chi preferences and said, he can't be considered a traitor. After all, it was the Jing family that was destroyed first. However, now that you think about it, this girl is quite capable and knows a lot of things. What does she know? Chi knew clearly that this girl had the Li family behind her, so the person who took care of her would definitely want to say a few good words for her. He just treated it as if he was watching a play. After all, in this courtyard, every day was the same. It was rare for a new person to come. Let's not talk about this girl's medical skills first. Just based on one thing, I'm afraid that even you will benefit from it. The person beside him deliberately kept him in suspense. When he saw Chi frown, he continued, the painkillers you've been taking recently were all produced by her company. She has several companies under her, the most famous being tea, wine, and medicine. This girl is also very honest and specially provides hemostatic medicine for the army. The effect is especially good. In addition, the price of the medicine sold is not expensive. Every month, she uses a lot of money for charity. On the surface, she looks cold and cheerless, but in reality, she has done a lot of good things in private. Oh right, the information also said that this girl knows some martial arts. I don't know if it's good or not, but it looks like she has small arms and legs. It's quite rare. After this, Chi frown deepened. How could there be such an outstanding person in this world? She knows everything. Decathlon. She was just a girl. No wonder she was so arrogant just now. She was probably used to being flattered by others. After all, she came from an aristocratic family. You know martial arts, right? Anyway, she doesn't have a job now and has nothing to do. In the afternoon, let her follow those people to build roads for the villagers at the foot of the mountain. Chi faintly added a sentence. When the person next to him heard this, he immediately sighed, why do you have to do this? She's just a little girl. Even if her medical skills aren't up to par, she can still chat with you. She's also pretty and has a nice voice. If you really can't do it, you can ask her to sing a song. It'll be nice to listen to her. They had a lot of people here. Usually, some teams would go down the mountain to patrol around. Occasionally, they would help the villagers with some things. Recently, they were busy repairing roads for the villagers. They were making the best use of everything. However, when he thought about letting a little girl do such heavy work, he felt quite apologetic. Don't you know martial arts? Of course, her strength isn't small. She can't be idle when she's repairing roads, planting crops, or helping the villagers catch mice. Chi continued to do as he pleased. At this time, the confidant next to him couldn't stop him anymore. After thinking carefully, it should be that the big fat rabbit that this girl made today made the old man greedy, so she deliberately took revenge. Chapter 1260. If it was in the past, Chi would never bully the little girl. He didn't have a family and didn't have any children, but he liked this kind of girl very much. If it weren't for the fact that it wasn't appropriate to raise girls in the army, he would definitely have adopted a few more by his side. He had always been patient with children. Otherwise, old Master Li and the others wouldn't have achieved what they had today. But that was many years ago. At this time, the subordinate asked someone to pass the message. Chi Yugwa glanced at the ordinary-looking man in the room, then withdrew his gaze and continued to bask in the sun. The weather today was good. Although his bones were sore, it was not as good as usual. Not long after, Chi Yugwa's message had already reached Jing Yunzhao's ears. Jing Yunzhao raised her head and glanced at the room, then calmly nodded her head in agreement. However, no matter how big the matter was, it still had to wait until she finished eating. Thus, she slowly finished the medicinal cuisine she had prepared herself. The people here all had their own duties, so she couldn't bring herself to share the food with others. Therefore, almost all the food went into her stomach. She ate slowly and gracefully, which made people feel more and more hungry. In the end, Chi Yugwa simply closed the curtains and didn't even bother to continue basking in the sun. In the afternoon, Jing Yunzhao followed more than 20 soldiers to the village at the foot of the mountain to repair the road. The work done by the men was nothing to her. Besides, they just came to help. There was no need to stay here all day, so she just took it as a relaxation. Especially when the workers saw that she was a girl, they couldn't keep ordering her around. Some kind women even pulled her aside to chat. Jing Yunzhao took the opportunity to inquire about the surrounding situation. She probably knew that there was a pond at the foot of the mountain, so when she went back in the evening, she caught a few fish from the space. When the people around her didn't notice, she changed the fish she caught in the river outside. Her identity was a doctor, not a soldier, so she went back early. After going back, she checked Chi Yugwa's pulse on time. "We have Christian carp soup tonight. Do you want some?" Jing Yunzhao also knew that at this time, Chi Yugwa couldn't let her treat the disease, so she only talked about food. Chi Yugwa glanced at her. "Did you do as you were told?" "Of course, you can ask someone if you don't believe me," Jing Yunzhao replied immediately. The confidant next to Chi Yugwa immediately nodded at him. Chi Yugwa was a little surprised. She didn't look like she had just come back from a hard time. Moreover, was this girl a reincarnation of a hungry ghost in her previous life? All she could think about was eating. "What do you mean by the 2 meat dishes you made at noon? As a doctor, you can't feed the patient random food, right?" Chi Yugwa said casually. As he spoke, he felt a numbing pain in his leg. He sucked in a breath of cold air and stretched out his hand. The person beside him immediately prepared to deliver painkillers. Jing Yunzhao glanced at it and took the medicine first. "Elder Chi, no matter how good the painkiller is, it won't work if you take too much." Although her painkillers were definitely good enough, if they could be used once or twice, or 8 to 10 times, what about 100 times, 100 times, or even more? The so-called painkillers had some anesthetic herbs, which would more or less affect the mind. Moreover, every medicine was 30% poisonous. How could it be taken as a meal? "This medicine is produced by your company. Are you starting to destroy your own reputation at this time?" Chi Yugwa wasn't flustered and exasperated. After all, the pain wasn't to the point that he couldn't bear it. Chapter 1261. Chi Yugwa was already used to taking painkillers. Most of the time, he would immediately take the medicine the moment he felt any discomfort. This also led to him taking a large amount of medicine. Of course, this was also because Jing Yunzhao's medicine was too effective. If it were the painkillers from before, the effects would be minimal after a few doses. It was precisely because Chi Yugwa didn't feel any side effects from this medicine that he was able to eat it as if it were candy. However, in the eyes of Jing Yunzhao, as a doctor, he absolutely couldn't use medicine carelessly when he shouldn't. You know very well whether or not my reputation will be ruined. I only know that your habit of taking medicine at every turn isn't good, Jing Yunzhao said with a smile. Humph, you're a doctor. You don't let your patients take medicine. What a joke. Qi Yugua immediately said. The corner of Jing Yunzhao's mouth curled up. You also feel uncomfortable somewhere. I can be responsible for giving you a massage. It will definitely be of some use. In the future, live according to my requirements. It's not impossible for this pain to disappear completely. Qi Yugua's body froze, but he didn't believe it. If this illness could disappear, there would be no need for these people to watch over him every 3 steps. He would live well. After all, he knew how important he was now. He would not joke about the military affairs. However, she was just a little girl. How could she have the ability to do that? He couldn't even count the number of doctors he had seen over the years. So many people didn't have the ability, but she did. Elder Qi, I know you don't like doctors. However, my method is different from others. I won't beg you to control your diet. Whatever you want to eat, I'll personally make it for you. I'll definitely put enough ingredients. Even if you want to drink, as long as you don't indulge too much, I can still satisfy you. Jing Yunzhao's eyes flashed with a trace of shrewdness as she deliberately tempted him. Grandpa Li said that Elder Qi used to love wine too. When these words were said, Elder Qi's body trembled. Little girl, are you really a doctor? I'll be whatever you say I am. I can be a nurse or a cook, Jing Yunzhao said directly. If she insisted on being responsible for Elder Qi, with the Li family, the Su family, and the Jing family, it was possible. But if something happened, she would have to bear a bigger responsibility. But if she didn't take full responsibility, then Qi Yugua would never be able to get better. Nonsense. Qi Yugua couldn't help but mutter. But he really wanted to mess around for once. Jing Yunzhao smiled brightly. I'm not messing around. Take the food I cooked for lunch as an example. If you eat it together, it's good for your body. Although I put a lot of ingredients, what I put in is a kind of medicine. It's not only good for your appetite but also good for your body. Why not? Those? Then tell me, what are the benefits of those dishes? Are you asking about snake soup or hare meat? Jing Yunzhao smiled faintly. Qi Yugua thought of those 2 dishes and his mouth became dry. He said, tell me about them. Snake soup is good stuff. It can clear away heat and cool blood, relax tendons and unblock meridians, drive away wind and remove dampness, nourish yin and lungs, regulate endocrine secretions, and harmonize qi and blood. As for the hare meat, it's good for your body's thinness, dizziness, and weakness in the waist and feet. You probably only saw the meat and didn't see the vegetarian dishes I made. Those vegetarian dishes are all natural green food. It's good for your body. Jing Yunzhao's name kept popping out, making people dizzy. Before they could react, she said, nourishing your body with food is only one of the benefits. If you're willing, you can stay in this room less in the future. I'll accompany you to go out more often. If your arms and legs don't move, under the treatment of those doctors, you'll be no different from a zombie sooner or later. Chapter 1262. What Jing Yunzhao wanted to express was very simple. She was on the same side as Elder Qi. She didn't just want him to live, she wanted him to live with vitality. With her ability, if she only cared about prolonging Elder Qi's life, not to mention 10 or 20 years, she might even be able to do it for 30 years. After all, she didn't care about his body, she only cared about whether he was breathing his last. Qi Yugua was a little moved. Why did he want to die? He just didn't want to live in such pain. If this little girl could really do what she said, then no matter what, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. If he was tortured to death by her, it would be a relief. Even if he didn't die, at least he would have a good meal. But this little girl was really bold. Did she know what the consequences would be if she failed? The other doctors might not agree. Elder Chi said faintly. I'll be responsible for your food and drink. They will come to check on you every day. Even the slightest problem can be found in time. So as long as you and I insist, there will be no problem. Jing Yunzhao said directly. She was responsible for his health. If something happened, she would also take responsibility. Those people just wanted to take advantage of it. How could they not be willing? As for those people in the military, she believed that Old Man Li and her uncle had the ability to take care of them first. After all, Old Man Li also hoped that Elder Qi could truly retire. Qi Yugua of course knew how much power he had. Before, no one was willing to listen to him. Now that someone was willing to listen, the others definitely couldn't do anything. Okay, but I have to see how your cooking skills are first. Elder Qi said seriously. Jing Yunzhao immediately smiled and nodded. As soon as Qi Yugua agreed, Jing Yunzhao began to prepare. But before she went out, Jing Yunzhao glanced at the several soldiers in the room. Then she walked in front of one of them, rubbed her nose and sniffed twice. Finally, she stared at the unfamiliar face and confirmed that it was indeed Li Xiaoyun. She originally thought that he used some mysterious ointment to disguise his face, but after sniffing around, she didn't find anything. Now that she took a closer look, she realized that it was just a man-made human skin mask that was more realistic. Jing Yunzhao saw that his eyes didn't change, so she didn't disturb him. After confirming it, she went out. Li Xiaoyun's presence made her feel more at ease. However, as soon as they left Qi Yugua's ward, they were stopped by several doctors. Jing Yunzhao recognized one of them. It was a former disciple of the Jing family, Dr. Zhong Ming. Little Dr. Jing, I heard that you will be responsible for Elder Qi's meals in the future. Zhong Ming directly opened his mouth and said to her unhappily. That's right. Not only the meals, but also the daily habits will be taken over by me in the future. So during this period, I advise everyone to leave or turn a blind eye in order to protect themselves. Try not to appear in front of Elder Qi as much as possible. Otherwise, if something happens, you will be implicated. Jing Yunzhao did not have a good impression of these people. In order to prolong the life of a patient, they were willing to sacrifice everything. They were a bunch of fanatics for fame and fortune, right? Of course, she didn't deny her purpose in coming here. She also wanted fame and fortune, but the difference was that if she really didn't have a way to cure Elder Qi, even if she used the Jing family to tempt her, she still wouldn't come. You little girl, aren't you a bit too arrogant? Do you understand what you are saying? Do you know that Elder Qi being able to live until now is the result of everyone's hard work? You, on the other hand, want to change all the rules. Do you have any respect for your elders? Perhaps it was because he knew Jing Yunzhao's identity. Dr. Zhong Ming was immediately displeased. Chapter 1263. When Jing Yunzhao heard this, she couldn't help but laugh. Elder. If I remember correctly, even if you have found another job, you were once a disciple of the Jing clan. Don't you know the rules of the Jing clan? In the Jing clan, regardless of age, in front of the head of the Jing clan, everyone has to be a generation lower. So, my status is higher than yours. You. Jing Yunzhao, what kind of head of the Jing clan are you? Zhong Ming was so angry that his beard trembled. This is not a place for you to play. Before, because of the Su family and the Li family, we gave you some face, but you don't know what's good for you. How much is face worth? What kind of medicine can it be? Jing Yunzhao sneered. Everyone here has been by Elder Qi's side as a doctor for quite a few years now, but all these years, other than trying to control his body's various functions and hormones, what else can you do? You didn't care about his illness, right? Until now, he is still relying on my medicine. Since that is the case, what qualifications do you have to be arrogant in front of me? I did not participate in your treatment plan before, but since my medicine has always played the most important role, it is no different from me personally participating. In terms of longevity and health, I know no less than any of you. In addition, I am the only one who can completely cure Elder Qi's illness. Can any of you? Jing Yunzhao let out a sigh of relief. If you can't, then wait. Don't point fingers in front of me. Her voice was cold, not giving the other party any face. She wasn't saying that these people were idiots, but she felt sorry for the old man who had worked hard all his life. She also knew that it wasn't that these people didn't want Elder Qi's illness to disappear, but it was because the illness was so old that it was difficult for them to do it. Even old Manly, with his status, was helpless, let alone them. However, they were still angry. Jing Yunzhao's cold words made these people's faces turn ugly. Most of them were famous and promising people. It would be strange if they felt comfortable being looked down on by a little girl. However, this girl was right. They didn't have the ability to completely cure Elder Qi of his illness. They were indeed incompetent. From what you're saying, you seem to think that you can completely solve Elder Qi's problem. Zhong Ming's eyes were suspicious and angry. Whether or not it's possible, we'll know in the future. At the very least, I have a bit more hope than you guys, Jing Yunzhao said as she walked past them, not giving them any face. Zhong Ming was so angry that he felt uncomfortable in his heart. Because he had some connections with Jing Yunzhao, if he lost face with this little girl, he would also lose face. However, he was only a person recommended by the Li clan. Compared to Jing Yunzhao's status, he couldn't compare. Now that Elder Qi had agreed, it would be difficult for him to interfere. After Jing Yunzhao passed by these people, she directly occupied the old man's exclusive kitchen. However, she only used the space food that she brought back from outside in the afternoon. This time, she was going to make a medicinal soup with crucian carp. She added some dried orange peel, camellias, and other herbs, mainly to treat the weak spleen and stomach. The fish and herbs produced in the space all tasted very good. When it was finished, even if the lid was closed, she could still smell the fragrance coming from inside. However, she wanted to make it as light as possible at night. The other two dishes were simple vegetarian dishes and some space fruits. Of course, even if it was a vegetarian dish, Jing Yunzhao still had absolute confidence. Chapter 1264. Before coming here, even though Jing Yunzhao was confident, she was still a little worried. Now that she had seen Elder Qi's body, she already had an idea in her heart. As long as Elder Qi cooperated, she had a 70% chance of curing him. The reason why it wasn't 100% was because of some external factors, so she wouldn't speak too confidently. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao pushed the dining cart with her and sent a few dishes into Elder Qi's room. As soon as she entered, she found that Zhong Ming and the others were already waiting in the room. At the same time, they had also prepared the daily nutritious meals. These nutritious meals for the elderly had no special features. The first time one ate it, they might feel that it was not bad, but after a long time, one would feel that it was bland. Even though there were many types of dishes, the taste was basically very similar. The old man had eaten it for a few years and was tired of it. Elder Qi, it's not suitable for your body to eat these things that are too strong. This girl put a lot of seasoning and even prepared wine. If you drink it, it's not good for your body. Zhong Ming hurriedly advised. After exchanging blows with Jing Yunzhao, he contacted the Li family and asked. Only then did he know that this girl wanted to replace the Li family. If it was just to steal the limelight from Elder Qi, it would be fine. After all, he was only here to plate himself. As long as the treatment was completed, he would definitely become a famous doctor that the rich and powerful families would fight to praise. However, Jing Yunzhao wanted to steal the benefits of the Li family, which was equivalent to stealing his resources. All these years, he had a good relationship with the Li family. The Li family provided him with money and he used the Li family's name to practice medicine and fight for the reputation of the hospital. Once the Li family fell, it would have a big impact on him. On one hand, it would be difficult for him to find other supporters at his age. On the other hand, he would lose a large amount of financial support. He wanted to study medicine and research some prescriptions, so he had to use a lot of herbs. Ordinary herbs were fine, but many expensive herbs could not withstand his consumption. More importantly, the Li family's reputation was great. They cooperated and traded with each other, so the Li family was extremely important to him. Jing Yunzhao did not seem to hear Zhong Ming's words. She directly placed the food on the dining cart in front of Elder Qi and pushed the nutritious meals to the side. Dr. Jing. Zhong Ming said unhappily. Jing Yunzhao glanced at him and replied, "You've been taking care of the old man's health for a while now, right? He's been given nutritious meals and all kinds of medicine every day, but Elder Qi's illness hasn't improved. If we follow your method, we might as well let Elder Qi become a vegetable, lying in bed every day and letting you do whatever you want." When these words were said, the expressions of Zhong Ming and the others changed. The main reason the military had invited them over was to treat the illness, not to prolong their lives. However, everyone knew that if they couldn't do the former, they had to find a way to achieve the most basic goal. In the beginning, this group of people also had the intention to treat the old man's illness. However, if they wanted to cure it completely, the old man would definitely have to suffer and take a lot of medicine. However, Qi Yugua was now more than 110 years old. If he was tormented by them and directly died, then these doctors would definitely not be able to raise their heads in the future. In addition, the painkillers previously produced by Jing Yunzhao Company could completely make them ignore Elder Qi's own problems. Dr. Jing, if you insist on satisfying Elder Qi's appetite now, who will be responsible if something happens to his body? Looking at you, you seem to look down on our methods. What about you? If we can't cure Elder Qi's illness completely, what will you do? Old Dr. Zhong Ming was also quite old. When he spoke, his words were sour and scholarly. Chapter 1265. With old man Zhong Ming as the leader, the group of people maintained a dissatisfied attitude towards Jing Yunzhao. At the same time, they were waiting to see her make a fool of herself. Don't you all want me to promise in front of everyone that if anything happens to Elder Qi in my hands, I will take full responsibility and even pay with my life? Why do you have to beat around the bush and deliberately provoke me? Jing Yunzhao snorted coldly and said, "It's fine if you want me to make a promise, but when I'm treating Elder Qi's illness, I don't want anyone to casually interfere or even feed Elder Qi some random stuff. Otherwise, if anything happens to Elder Qi, even if I have to pay with my life, I will drag all of you down to hell with me." Her cold expression made people's hearts turn cold. If the person who said this was an ordinary girl or an ordinary doctor, they might not take it to heart. But who was Jing Yunzhao? The granddaughter of the Su family, the successor of the Jing family, and even seemed to be related to the Li family. With such a status, it was easy for her to stop their development. All of their expressions were terrible. They were humiliated that they were threatened by a little girl like Jing Yunzhao, and they were nervous that they had really angered the girl in front of them. Not all of them had the backing of a wealthy family like Zhong Ming. Even if their family background was not bad and they did not lack money, they were definitely not considered to have power and influence. Alright, Dr. Jing. If you insist on treating Elder Qi alone, we can't stop you. But we will take Elder Qi's pulse and check his body every day. Under the situation where we don't use any medicine, if there are any problems with Elder Qi's body or if his illness is not cured, then you will take full responsibility and withdraw immediately and admit your mistake, Zhongming said. With these words, it could be considered as putting this matter on the table. As long as Jing Yunzhao agreed in front of Elder Qi, the matter would be settled. Jing Yunzhao couldn't wait for these people to watch from afar, especially this Zhongming. The two of them had different ideologies. If they forced the treatment together, the one who would suffer would be Elder Qi. I agree, Jing Yunzhao said directly. Zhongming's expression relaxed. He didn't believe that Jing Yunzhao would be able to cure a disease that so many old doctors couldn't. Elder Qi's health wasn't bad. As long as he didn't use any dangerous medicine, there wouldn't be any life-threatening problems. However, the possibility of him being cured wasn't high. But even if he wasn't cured, Jing Yunzhao still had to withdraw. Jing Yunzhao understood the meaning of admitting her mistakes. It was to let her admit her incompetence and ignorance to everyone. At that time, she would not be fit to be the head of the Jing clan and would become a joke. It would even affect the reputation of the immortal Crane Hole. The patients might not dare to trust her in the future. Even if he had the chance to prove himself in the future, the stain on his name would never be washed away. After all, the influence of the name Qi Yuguo was too great. Withdraw. Since Jing Yunzhao had already agreed, Zhongming no longer put on an act. He got the nurse to take the nutritious meal away and the few of them prepared to leave. Everyone, please wait a moment. Just as they were about to leave, Jing Yunzhao suddenly opened his mouth and called out again. Then he sneered and said, "From today onwards, if any doctor wants to get close to Elder Qi, you must get my permission and do all the examinations in my sight. I hope everyone can abide by this." What do you mean? Zhongming said coldly. Was he treating them like thieves? Everyone here is a famous doctor. You must know what medical ethics is. However, in the face of benefits, I can't guarantee that you won't secretly use something that shouldn't be used on Elder Qi because you want to frame me. So just in case, it's best to directly eliminate this possibility. Chapter 1266. After Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, their faces turned ashen. For people like them, there was nothing more humiliating than having their character questioned. However, the one who felt the most nauseous was Zhongming. Jing Yunzhao kept talking about medical ethics and character, but his eyes were staring in his direction. It was as if he was talking about the past when he changed his allegiance to the Li family. It really made his old face burn with pain. His medical skills were indeed taught by the Jing family. He and Jing Wenyue were considered fellow disciples. However, Jing Wenyue was the heir at first, and later became the head of the Jing family. She was naturally different from him, a disciple who did not have the Jing family's bloodline. Therefore, the things they learned were also different. The Jing family's medical skills were indeed profound. Even though he later searched for the prescriptions and medicines of many medical families, he still felt that the Jing family was better. However, even if he was talented, he still had to go through a series of tests to learn the core of the Jing family's medical skills. That was fine, but Jing Wenyue had a short life. She was already dead, so the most likely to inherit the Jing family's medical skills was the Li family, who controlled the Jing family. All these years, he had asked Li Wenbo to search for the Jing family's secret techniques. However, he did not find any trace of them. He originally thought that perhaps the Jing family's medical skills were passed down by word of mouth, so he could not find any medical books. However, the sudden appearance of Jing Yunzhao made him very puzzled. She had a good reputation outside. Although he had not seen her personally, even Li Wenbo said that if this Jing Yunzhao could not win over the surnamed Li, then he should not be allowed to stay. And this time, it was a good opportunity. He did not know how much of the Jing family's medical skills Jing Yunzhao had inherited. If his rank was not high enough, it would be difficult for him to establish himself in the medical world in the future. Now, after Jing Yunzhao gave a warning, he did not say much. After all, Li Xiaoyun had changed his face and stayed among the guards, so he could be monitored at any time. When Zhong Ming and the others saw Jing Yunzhao's impolite manner, it was useless to hold back their anger. They could only leave angrily. These people were not fools. They were angry because of Jing Yunzhao's impolite attitude. It had nothing to do with Elder Qi. After all, Jing Yunzhao had already said that he would take full responsibility, so there was no loss to them. Once the others left, the room became much quieter. From the beginning to the end, Qi Yugua maintained a quiet attitude and watched from the side. He was also somewhat curious about this little girl, especially compared to the seemingly obedient smile on Jing Yunzhao's face when she first arrived. He felt that Jing Yunzhao was very strange at this moment. Despite his young age, his aura was not weak. "This is the dish you made. Why are there so many vegetarian dishes?" Elder Qi asked deliberately. He had long smelled the aroma of the dishes and was very hungry. He didn't know if it was a psychological effect, but even though it was clearly a vegetarian dish, the food that Jing Yunzhao made looked more enticing than those nutritious meals. If he didn't want to suppress this little girl's temper, he wouldn't have been able to resist eating a few mouthfuls. "You shouldn't eat too much at night. You should mainly drink some Christian carp soup. Just eat a few mouthfuls of these vegetarian dishes. As for the wine, I only have this small cup," Jing Yunzhao said. This was a medicinal wine, and it was even different from the ones sold on the market by Jade Spirit Wine Company. The medicinal herbs used in it were excellent, and it had always been placed in a place rich in spiritual energy. It was definitely comparable to the immortal jade wine. Humph! Qi Yugua made a sound from his throat and picked up the spoon to drink a mouthful of soup. However, after drinking it, his old face couldn't help but turn red. Then, he drank a few more mouthfuls without a trace. He had to say, this taste was indeed fresh. Chapter 1267. When Jing Yunzhao was in the Su family, she often cooked personally. However, she would restrain herself a little to prevent her grandfather and eldest uncle from being too picky about other things in the future if they ate too much of her cooking. However, she couldn't restrain her culinary skills anymore, so she used all of her abilities. In her previous life, her culinary skills weren't bad, but in this life, she learned a lot from the spirit jade. She studied the characteristics of plants thoroughly, so she naturally knew how to match them and what ingredients to use to make the best medicinal cuisine. Everything here came from the space and was cultivated by the space's blue spring, so there was no need to mention the taste and benefits. In addition, she knew Du Lin, the descendant of an imperial chef, so she was somewhat influenced by him. Jing Yunzhao stood to the side and waited. She didn't ask how the old man tasted as she watched him eat one mouthful after another. However, Qi Yugua's appetite wasn't big for many years, so Jing Yunzhao deliberately controlled the amount of rice in his bowl so that he wouldn't be too full. While Qi Yugua was eating, Jing Yunzhao's gaze flickered to the unprepossessing soldier. She found that Li Xiaoyun was indeed very good at hiding. From his eyes to any expression on his body, she couldn't tell what he was like in the past. If it weren't for the smell on his body, she would have been fooled by him. Qi Yugua's identity was very important, so there were often people who came to assassinate him. However, because of the tight security around the area, not even a mosquito could fly in. Jing Yunzhao knew that Qi Yugua didn't need Li Xiaoyun's personal protection, so his appearance was most likely because of her. Elder Qi ate very quickly, which was detrimental to his health. Jing Yunzhao didn't rush to remind him. Instead, she waited for him to finish eating before saying faintly, chewing carefully and swallowing slowly will prolong your life. You've only eaten for 15 minutes, which is twice as fast as I expected. After resting for half an hour, you should get up and go outside for a walk. Qi Yugua glared at her. It's easier to eat early. If I'm so slow on the battlefield, won't I lose my life? If you want your body to be strong, you have to chew your food until it's pulp. Haven't you heard of this saying? Besides, you're not on the battlefield right now, Jing Yunzhao said as he unceremoniously put away the dishes. Little girl, you know quite a lot of proverbs. Haven't you heard that time is precious? All right, we've eaten. Let's talk about taking a walk next time. Qi Yugua stared at Jing Yunzhao and said in a muffled voice. He didn't mind taking a stroll, but every time he went out, there were too many people following him. Jing Yunzhao smiled and asked the nurse to take the plate away. After a while, he went to the drawer next to him and took out all the painkillers. Under Qi Yugua's astonished gaze, he threw them directly into the toilet. Along with the sound of hua hua, all the painkillers were gone. Qi Yugua was really angry when he saw that the painkillers were gone. Get out of here. Jing Yunzhao glanced at him. When I came, I told you that painkillers can only relieve the pain for a while. In the long run, no matter how good the painkillers are, they won't have any effect. From today onwards, if you feel any pain, just tell me. I'll live in the room next to yours. I can definitely relieve the pain for you in time. Don't be angry. I can guarantee that with me here, it's much more effective than those painkillers. Besides, don't you know it too? Those painkillers were made by me, so you should believe in my ability. Jing Yunzhao saw that Elder Qi's expression was ugly and said slowly. Chapter 1268. Jing Yunzhao's voice was soft and did not sound noisy. Qi Yugua was filled with anger, but when he thought about the food he had just eaten, he felt helpless. If he really drove this girl away, no one would listen to him and make delicious food in the future. If the effect is not good enough, you are not allowed to stop me from using painkillers. Qi Yugua took a step back. Of course. Jing Yunzhao quickly replied. After saying that, seeing that Elder Qi was about to go to bed, Jing Yunzhao said, You can't exercise immediately after eating. How about I play chess with you first? Qi Yugua was stunned. What kind of chess do you know? I don't play 5-in-a-row chess, Qi Yugua said. I'll play whatever you know. You can choose whatever you want, Jing Yunzhao said confidently. There was nothing lacking here. Even if there was something lacking, they could just go down the mountain and buy it. At this time, Qi Yugua was provoked by Jing Yunzhao's arrogance and was somewhat dissatisfied. In his opinion, children could be arrogant, but they could not be arrogant to the point of blindness. Otherwise, they would not have much of a future to speak of. Let's start with Chinese chess today. Qi Yugua said coldly. Jing Yunzhao's lips curled up as she nodded. Since her rebirth, she had learned a lot of things. She was proficient in Chinese chess and Go. Usually, she mainly played with her grandfather. Moreover, when she played with her grandfather, she would also read medical books to cultivate her ability to multitask. Because she had absorbed the spirit jade, her memory and patience were several times better than in her previous life. She was also a fast learner. After a few rounds, even her grandfather might not be able to beat her. Soon, the Chinese chess was set up. The room was extremely quiet as the two played back and forth. Jing Yunzhao did not know Qi Yugua's ability, so she did not dare to let her guard down. At first, she mainly focused on defense. However, Chi Yugwe was worthy of being called a general. He did not look like he was playing for fun. Instead, he looked like he was really fighting on the battlefield. His brows were tightly knitted and his face was serious. Paw paw, the sound of chess pieces being placed could be heard continuously. The two were also pressing forward step by step, neither giving way to the other. Chi Yugwe was a little surprised. He thought that this girl was arrogant, but he didn't expect her to be so capable. He had lived for more than 100 years. When he was in the army, he liked to play chess. There were not many people who could beat him. Later, people of the same age as him all went, so he could only play chess with himself. He thought that his chess skills were unparalleled, but he did not expect that this little girl's offensive and defensive abilities were not inferior to his at all. Rather than saying that it was a competition of chess skills, it was better to say that it was a competition of scheming and calculating ability. With every move, one had to calculate the opponent's reaction and subsequent moves. Jing Yunzhao was also glad that he didn't underestimate his opponent at the beginning. Otherwise, he would have been swallowed up and lost the whole game. After all, Elder Qi was much older than her. Even if she had an advantage with her brain, they could only be considered evenly matched. Of course, the main reason why they were evenly matched for the first time was because Chi Yugwe didn't take her seriously at all. That was why he didn't prepare as much as she did at the beginning. The two of them fought back and forth for more than half an hour. In the end, there were only a few pieces left on the chessboard. In the end, Chi Yugwe threw away the chess piece in his hand and said, "Forget it, you're lucky this time." Up until now, it was almost always a case of injuring the enemy and losing 1,000. Even if he won, it was meaningless. However, this girl really made him look at her in a new light. He sighed and said, "Isn't it just a walk? Let's go." Chapter 1269. Chi Yugwe's decision to cooperate was the best outcome for Jing Yunzhao. She quickly responded with a smile and helped him up. The old man was old, so it was reasonable to say that he shouldn't exercise after eating. However, he had already rested for more than half an hour. The amount of exercise that Jing Yunzhao requested was also small, so there shouldn't be any problems. Your meal time must be set at about 45 minutes in the future. If it's less than this time, I'll prepare a nutritious meal for you as a punishment. After feeling the soothing atmosphere outside, Jing Yunzhao walked slowly with the old man and didn't forget to say this. Chi Yugwe's old bones trembled. This girl must be doing it on purpose. After he tasted her dishes, she actually threatened him with a nutritious meal. After tasting that kind of delicious food, a nutritious meal was no different from pig food to him. Chi Yugwe didn't respond, but seeing his reaction, Jing Yunzhao knew that she had calculated correctly. There was a faint smile in her gentle eyes. While the old man was walking, Li Xiaoyun was the closest to him. There was a large group of people following behind him, carefully watching the surroundings. There were even people observing the situation in the sky. There was no blind spot in the 360-degree protection. It was indeed suffocating. However, during the walk, Jing Yunzhao didn't care whether the old man was willing or not. She began to tell stories about the outside world, such as some news she had seen before, as well as some interesting things in business or life. Chi Yugwe hadn't been in contact with the outside world for many years. He usually had a lot of leisure activities. He also read newspapers, but only military articles. As for electronic products, he was old and couldn't learn as much as before, so he wasn't very proficient in them. What Jing Yunzhao said were all interesting things, making his mood better and better. He even felt a little proud of himself. So many years of fighting on the battlefield were worth it. Otherwise, people wouldn't be able to live a life thousands of times better than before. Chi Yugua's complexion was much better. After taking a walk, he was even more cooperative with Jing Yunzhao. Whenever he felt pain in his body, he would tell her in time. Jing Yunzhao used her silver needles to help him comb through his qi and blood. After she was done, Chi Yugua felt both physically and mentally comfortable. The acupuncture method used on Chi Yugua was the most difficult one in the spirit jade. It was mainly used to treat some stubborn old diseases. Because he was old, it could not be rushed. It could only be done step by step. During the acupuncture, she also used her internal qi. Otherwise, she could not achieve the desired effect. Therefore, after the first treatment, Jing Yunzhao was even more tired and seemed to collapse. The old man wasn't a blind person, and he wasn't even cruel. Now that he knew that Jing Yunzhao was doing it for his own good, he was more concerned about her and told her to go back and rest in peace. In the beginning, the acupuncture treatment would probably be performed 7 or 8 times a day. Whenever it began to flare up, Jing Yunzhao would have to step in. Later on, the symptoms would be alleviated as the qi and blood became more gentle and comfortable. Jing Yunzhao told the old man in advance, so that he wouldn't be upset when he felt pain again at night. After doing all this, Jing Yunzhao had time to rest, even if it was only for a short time. Her room was next to the old man's. The decoration was simple. With her good hearing, she could ensure that she could hear the old man's movements in time. That night, Jing Yunzhao performed acupuncture 3 more times. In such a short time, she was so tired that she had to rest almost immediately after the treatment. Otherwise, she wouldn't have enough energy next time. Fortunately, she lived alone in a room. When she really couldn't stand it, it was convenient for her to go to the space. Otherwise, she really couldn't cure the disease in a short time. Li Xiaoyun knew her situation best. He never took the initiative to find her. He even asked people to guard her door and not let anyone disturb her rest. It was an unexpected tacit understanding. Chapter 1270. For nearly 10 consecutive days, Jing Yunzhao's body was in a state of overload almost every day. However, Chi Yugua's complexion was much better. Although the food he ate before was nutritious, Elder Qi didn't eat much at all. His mood was also very low every day, causing his body to be on the skinny side. Jing Yunzhao's method was different from those doctors. She would choose to present the old man's favorite food in the form of medicinal cuisine. She would set a fixed amount, not too much, not too little. In addition, she would occasionally massage and acupuncture several times a day. In just a few days, he looked slightly chubbier than before. Of course, Elder Qi's body was already shockingly thin. Even though he had gained a few pounds now, he still couldn't be considered fat. What do you want to eat for lunch? After breakfast, the old man began to think about lunch again and asked. 9-tailed chicken, Jing Yunzhao said with a smile in her eyes. During this period of time, every time he saw the dishes Jing Yunzhao brought up, the old man would open his mouth to ask a few more questions. He would nitpick on the ingredients, wanting to know what she put in the dishes, wanting to reprimand her, but after so many days, none of the dishes he tried were the same. Even if the ingredients were the same, the taste of the dishes was completely different. Moreover, every dish left him with endless aftertaste. 9-tailed chicken. Is it made by a fox that became an immortal? Elder Qi muttered. Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips. Of course not. When I go back to the forest, I should be able to catch a live pheasant and cook it with 9-tailed grass, wolfberry, astragalus, and some other herbs. The taste is fragrant and smooth. It's guaranteed to be delicious. When Chi Yugua heard this, he felt that the gluttonous bug had been hooked. If it was in the past, he might not even want to eat a few mouthfuls of dragon meat from the sky. However, now he was very fond of this girl's homemade medicinal cuisine. Moreover, every time he ate the dishes she made, his whole body would feel very comfortable. He even clearly felt that his strength had increased a lot recently. Not only that, he hadn't taken painkillers for many days. Every time the pain started, this girl would take a silver needle and poke him here and there. The places that were poked would feel a little numb and warm. After about 10 minutes of acupuncture, the soreness would slowly subside. Although it was a little troublesome to perform acupuncture 7 or 8 times a day, it had to be said that the effect was very good. Moreover, yesterday's acupuncture was one less time than before. This made him even more convinced that Jing Yunzhao had the ability to cure him. After a while, Qi Yugua saw Zhong Ming and the others walk in and asked, "Little Jing, your medical skills are much better than the disciples of the Jing clan. Could it be that your ancestor deliberately hid it because his disciples had different surnames?" When Zhong Ming heard this, his old face. Jing family disciple. Although he didn't mention the name, everyone knew who he was talking about. Just like now, weren't all the doctors looking at him? That's where you're wrong. Although I didn't grow up in the Jing clan, I know what kind of people our ancestors are. The Jing clan's teachings are mainly based on medical ethics. As long as they pass the test of character, other than the secret arts, all other medical skills will be taught wholeheartedly. As for the secret arts, it was nothing more than some acupuncture techniques and cultivation methods. If those things were passed down, the Jing family might not have been able to pass it down for so many years. In this world, people were fickle. With the Jing family's secret arts suppressing others, no matter how capable they were, they wouldn't do anything they shouldn't do. Chapter 1271. Although it was true that the Jing family didn't teach their disciples any secret techniques, their understanding of medicine was incomparable to that of the other families of physicians. Furthermore, if a physician could really study those things thoroughly, even if they didn't rely on secret techniques, it wasn't impossible for them to surpass their master. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao's words caused a trace of anger to flash across Zhong Ming's eyes. After a few days, many people's views of her had changed. This was something that he never expected. Logically speaking, with Elder Qi's body and bones, who drank wine and ate meat every day, he would definitely deteriorate quickly. However, the truth was that his vitality was getting stronger and his temper and personality was much better than before. The other doctors could obviously see this from taking his pulse and were somewhat convinced by the Jing family. However, he wasn't convinced. Even if Jing Yunzhao could really cure him, it wasn't her ability. This little girl had only stolen a good fetus. Otherwise, how could she have the qualifications to learn the Jing family's true teachings? Elder Qi, please prepare. We'll do a checkup for you now. Zhong Ming tried his best to calm down as he spoke. No matter how bold he was, he couldn't lose his temper with Elder Qi. Although he wasn't young and was over 70 years old, Elder Qi was 40 years older than him. In front of him, he was just a junior. Haven't you done a checkup for several days? You haven't found any problems. I think you should all scram. You're wasting food here. Qi Yugua's words were even more vicious than Jing Yunzhao's. It wasn't surprising. Before Jing Yunzhao came, these doctors had all tried their best to help him restrain himself in all aspects. However, they didn't help at all when it came to his illness. They couldn't wait for him to become a cripple and lie in bed like a tortoise. Now, let alone chasing them away, he even had the thought of shooting them to death. Zhong Ming's expression changed. Elder Qi, the main reason why your body is so healthy is because you've adjusted well in the past. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to withstand the calories from those foods. Your body has indeed improved recently, but I'm afraid that you're overdrawing your life force. Therefore, the necessary checkup can't be avoided." Zhong Ming added. Some of the others blushed slightly because of Zhong Ming's words. In the past, they couldn't be clearer about Qi Yugua's condition. He looked healthy, but his body was weak. It could be seen from his complexion. However, ever since Jing Yunzhao came, there was an obvious change. Qi Yugua had lived for so long and was well aware of other people's thoughts. However, he did not want to argue with these juniors at his age, so he closed his eyes and took a nap. Zhong Ming's expression was ugly as he took the pulse and examined the patient. Jing Yunzhao could feel his jealousy that was about to explode. This round of examination took about half an hour. After the examination, Jing Yunzhao woke up the old man and began to teach him how to practice the healthy fist. As for Zhong Ming and the others who had left the ward, they were all deep in thought. "Dr. Zhong, Elder Qi's body is much better than before. I think Dr. Jing's treatment method is indeed effective. There shouldn't be any use for us to stay," a doctor at the side said with a frown. He really wanted to treat Elder Qi's illness, but he wasn't 100% sure. He didn't dare to let the old man try the medicine he had prepared. In the end, he became like the other doctors and became an unscrupulous doctor who only extended the old man's life and ignored himself. Chapter 1272. Over the past few days, seeing Jing Yunzhao recuperate Elder Qi's body better and better made her feel like she was slapping herself in the face. Now that she recalled the words she said to Jing Yunzhao on the first day, she felt different. It was true that they were doing it for profit, but they seemed to be following the crowd more and more. They always thought that as long as Elder Qi didn't die, they would be able to get what they wanted. But in reality, they had completely ignored this identity. My thoughts are the same. Since Dr. Jing has a way to treat the illness, we'll just be adding to the trouble. Another female doctor at the side also opened her mouth and continued, "Moreover, Elder Qi already has a problem with us. Every time he sees us these few days, his temper will become bad. It should also affect his body, so I'm going to go back and tell the chief here to take the things and leave." Hearing this, Zhong Ming became anxious. "What do you mean by this? Are you going to let that little girl have her way?" Zhong Ming hurriedly said, "Think about how proud she was before. If you really leave, don't even think about raising your heads in the medical world in the future. Moreover, do you really think that this little girl knows any medical skills? She's just relying on the medical skills passed down by the Jing family to do whatever she wants. If she doesn't make those messy dishes for Elder Qi to eat, Elder Qi's illness will definitely recover faster." Hearing this, the others looked at each other. For such a long time, there were a few people among them who followed Zhong Ming's lead, but not everyone agreed with his way of thinking. What was wrong with Jing Yunzhao inheriting the medical skills of their ancestors? One's birth was one's fate. Furthermore, ever since Jing Yunzhao had arrived, they had specially investigated her just in case. This little girl may look young, but in reality, she wasn't just a young miss from a wealthy family. She had also suffered a lot in the past, and her starting point was even worse than theirs. She had led a wandering life for so long, yet she was still able to inherit the family business. That was an honor, not a shameful thing. They might not be as good as Jing Yunzhao in terms of medical skills, but they still understood right and wrong. However, Zhong Ming had the Li family behind him, so they didn't dare to offend him completely. They could only smile and accompany him. "Dr. Zhong, what do you think we should do? Don't tell me we still have to check on Elder Qi every day like we do now," someone asked. Zhong Ming's eyes flashed. He thought for a while and said, "Jing Yunzhao's medical skills are indeed not bad, but her methods are not good. Let's go and have a chat with the current officer in charge." I think that we might be able to treat the illness that she can treat, and we can definitely treat it better. As it concerns Elder Chi's health, I think that the military might pressure Jing Yunzhao to hand over the method to treat Elder Chi. At that time, with our strict attitude, Elder Chi's many years of illness will definitely be cured very quickly. Isn't this daylight robbery? One of them subconsciously asked. As soon as he said this, he knew that he was going to regret it. He quickly shut his mouth and corrected himself. What I mean is, if this gets out, it won't be good for our reputation, right? Moreover, Jing Yunzhao had a powerful backer. How could the military not help her? I heard that she has a hemostatic drug in her hand. The military is so busy protecting her. That's because they don't know what else Jing Yunzhao has in her hands. Zhong Ming's breathing was slightly hurried as he continued. Everyone knows that the Jing family is an aristocratic family with a 1,000-year-old legacy. However, do you know why the Jing family was able to stand tall for so many years until the unstable period after the war? That's because the Jing family holds a huge secret. Chapter 1273. As soon as Zhong Ming finished his words, everyone's heart skipped a beat. They didn't understand, but their curiosity was piqued. The Jing family used to be a very prestigious family of doctors. Countless people wanted to be a disciple of the Jing family. During the war, even their enemies didn't dare to act rashly. Dr. Zhong, can you explain it more clearly? What big secret? Everyone was so quiet that they could hear each other's breathing. There are 3 secrets of the Jing clan. The first is the secret technique of the Jing clan. You are all medical students, so you should know that the Jing clan has a lot of secret prescriptions. These prescriptions are all-encompassing. With these prescriptions, no matter what kind of illness it is, it can be cured. The second secret is the wealth that the Jing family has accumulated over the years. I was a disciple of the Jing family when I was young, so I know a lot of things. The ancestor of the Jing family is called Jing He. Jing He is a master who has lived for more than 300 years. He has countless children in his life and no one can compare to his ability to amass wealth. It is said that he secretly dug a place and buried a lot of treasures. There must be a lot of rare treasures. If there is such a huge amount of money, how can the military not be interested? And the third point is martial arts. I heard from Li Wenbo that Jing Yunzhao has a foundation in martial arts. She is still young, so her martial arts might not be very high. My master, Jing Yunzhao's great-grandfather, is also not weak in martial arts. It is very different from the martial arts of the sects today. If it wasn't for the war, he wouldn't have died after being shot. I heard that except for Jing Wenyue, every family head of the Jing family knows martial arts. There should be some legendary martial arts secret manual. If those things can be handed over to the military, how much can they benefit? After Zhong Ming finished speaking, he didn't even pant. After he finished speaking, he took a deep breath. His words were more or less exaggerated. It was true that the Jing family had secret techniques and there were many precious prescriptions, but as for the treasure, it was made up by him. The Jing family had a lot of wealth, but during the war, the Jing family did free medical services every day and did charity. They squandered their money like it was water. The remaining wealth was snatched away by the Li family. Of course, there might be some left, but it should be in the Jing family cemetery. However, the graveyard was guarded by the Jing clan members. Outsiders were not allowed to enter and the location was remote. There should be many poisonous creatures inside to prevent people from robbing the grave. Even Li Wenbo was not allowed to enter. As for the martial arts manual at the end, it was just an exaggeration. His master did no martial arts back then and was not weak. However, he did not know if he had any secret manuals. After all, he was only a disciple at that time and was only responsible for learning medicine. He could not enter the core of the Jing family and had no access to the secrets of the Jing family. However, if he told the military what he had said, he would have the ability to defend himself. There were definitely a lot of things in the graveyard and they could be considered treasures. There was definitely a place where the martial arts came from and naturally, they could be considered secret manuals. However, after Zhong Ming finished speaking, the dozen or so people around him fell silent. Clearly, they had not expected Zhong Ming to say such a thing. Wasn't this the same as deceiving one's master and destroying one's ancestors? Moreover, he felt that he wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to snatch the Jing family's medical skills. This person must not be befriended. However, most people disagreed, but there were still one or two who felt that this was a rare opportunity. Who didn't want to be famous? They didn't want the treasures and secret manuals. They only wanted a part of the medical skills. With that, how could they not be rich in the future? Take Jing Yunzhao for example. He had earned a lot from just a few prescriptions for wine and medicine. It was impossible for them not to be jealous. Chapter 1274. At this moment, there were a few people besides Zhong Ming with different expressions. A few of them already had thoughts of retreating. They weren't stupid. If they followed Zhong Ming and did this, their benefits wouldn't be comparable to Dr. Zhong Ming's. Everyone knew that Dr. Zhong was backed by the Li family and had a conflict with Jing Yunzhao. If Jing Yunzhao was done for, Dr. Zhong Ming would benefit a lot, but what did it mean to them? It was just a bit of fame and fortune, especially since there were many people among them who didn't know anything about Chinese medicine. The Chinese medicine house was like a heavenly book to them and didn't have much use. Dr. Zhong, I can't agree with your way of doing things. Even though Jing Yunzhao is indeed a little arrogant, she hasn't done anything that would make us hate her to the core. Plus, when she said that she would take full responsibility before the treatment, part of the reason should be to avoid implicating us. Looking at it, it also has morals. One of the female doctors still spoke up. When Zhong Ming heard that, he snorted. Morals? She has the prescription in her hands. She's afraid that we'll steal her reputation. Think about it carefully. If Elder Qi is cured by her, won't we become a joke in the future? I don't believe that she won't talk nonsense after she leaves. What if she tells everyone that it's all her credit? Won't we be the ones at a disadvantage? Zhong Ming said angrily. Everyone was silent. Although they felt that Jing Yunzhao might not be that kind of person, they couldn't help but feel a little worried. In this day and age, who would care about others when benefits were in front of them? Qi Yugua's significance was too great. If Jing Yunzhao really used this opportunity to promote herself, then they could only suffer in silence, unable to voice out their bitterness. But no matter what, I still don't agree with snatching her things. The female doctor said again. I know that everyone can distinguish right from wrong, but I feel that you only care about the small things and not the big things. The Jing family has always kept the prescription a secret. A few years ago, it was almost lost because there was no successor. In my opinion, those prescriptions aren't just the Jing family's things. They're national treasures. More people should learn it so that it can bring benefits to the common people. If we let her keep it, what if it's lost again? Isn't it a pity? That should have saved many lives. Zhong Ming continued to brainwash. Everyone knew in their hearts that he was distorting the truth, but they had to admit that he had indeed found a very good excuse for this kind of robbery. If Jing Yunzhao heard Zhong Ming's words, he would definitely mock him. The Jing clan did have a lot of hidden skills, but they weren't selfish. On one hand, it was something that belonged to the Jing family, so there was no reason to give it to others. On the other hand, many of the prescriptions in it were very effective. If it was spread, many people would benefit from it, but it would also bring some harm. It was human nature to be born, grow old, get sick, and die. It was a doctor's duty to save the dying and heal the injured, but they could not go against the heavens. Many of the Jing family's prescriptions were beyond the common sense of the medical world, so they could not be used recklessly. On the other hand, if it was spread, it was very likely that it would be used by some schemers. She wasn't exaggerating. After all, medicine and poison were closely related. Although the ancestors didn't purposely create something that would harm people, there were many prescriptions that could be used to fight poison with poison. In addition, there were all kinds of experiments in this day and age. Who knew what would happen if the prescription was completely spread? Of course, although Jing Yunzhao hadn't seen the Jing family's medical book, he could guarantee that it wasn't as complete as the one in the spirit jade. Chapter 1275. The people around Zhongming were immediately divided into two camps. One side was led by Zhongming, while the other side wanted to protect themselves. Zhongming saw their hesitation and suddenly stopped trying to persuade them. He only smiled coldly and said, "All of you are famous doctors. If bad things were to spread, it would affect your reputation and your family. Dr. Zhong, what do you mean by that?" Everyone had a bad feeling and asked. "Dr. Lin, if I remember correctly, you raised two female students who didn't have good lives in the name of donating to charity and forced them to be your little lovers, right?" Zhongming stared at one of them and whispered in his ear. After that, he smiled and said to another person, "Dr. Sun, you are not afraid of crooked shadows, but you only have one son." He didn't go into detail, but it made Dr. Sun's old face tremble. He only had one son. He wasn't young anymore, but his son had some health problems. He had never cured that illness, but he tried his best to hide it from the public, hoping to find a woman to carry on the family line as soon as possible. If word got out, his son might not be able to carry on the family line for him. Dr. Sun's expression was very bad, but he saw Zhongming saying something in everyone's ears. When these doctors heard it, they all had shocked and angry expressions. After living for so many years, it was really too difficult to not have any weaknesses that could be used against him. Family, friends, future, past, everyone was inextricably linked to this world. There would always be one or two things that he felt guilty about, and Zhongming had revealed those things one by one. "Dr. Zhong, you actually investigated us," one of them said in disbelief. Everyone was here to treat Elder Qi's illness, but Zhongming had made so many preparations. He could even dig up those old and rotten things. This person was really despicable. "Don't make it sound so bad. I'm just doing it for the convenience of work. If I don't know the character of the people I'm with, how can I work with peace of mind?" Zhongming's old face sneered and continued, "My suggestion is beneficial to everyone. You have no reason to refuse. If you insist on going against me and the Li family, then don't blame me for not giving you face." These doctors' backgrounds were all investigated by Li Wenbo. They were all famous doctors and had a lot of connections. Some of them had even worked in the Li family's hospital for a period of time. Later on, each of them had their own development. Li Wenbo was a careful person. He hoped to make use of everything around him that he could touch. Therefore, he had made preparations early on just in case. They had a bright future ahead of them. Who knew if there would be a day where they would need to use this information against them? Just like now, for the first time, Zhongming felt that Li Wenbo indeed had foresight. Everyone's expression was extremely ugly, but they could only helplessly nod their heads in agreement. When Zhongming saw this, his mood instantly improved. He immediately joined these people and went to the officer's house. One by one, the pros and cons were explained in detail. The united front seemed to represent justice. The room was quiet. The officers who were listening to these words had uncertain looks in their eyes. They seemed to be considering. By the time Zhong Ming and the rest came out of the house, 1 or 2 hours had already passed. During this period of time, they had almost worn out their mouths from talking. "I don't think it'll work," someone said after they came out. When they thought of the officer's expression, they felt that something was not right. This is not a small matter. It's a treasure. He can't make the decision alone. He will definitely discuss it with the higher-ups later. Let's just wait and see. Zhong Ming was full of confidence. Chapter 1276. While Zhong Ming and the others were plotting in private, Jing Yunzhao was oblivious to it. He focused on practicing with the old man. This set of life-preserving boxing was very beneficial to the body. After practicing for a few days, Qi could feel the difference in it. Li Xiaoyun, who had been following them from afar, had returned to the house. "Li Xiao, these people insist that the Jing family has a hidden treasure. If I don't report it, and they spread it out in the future, it will cause chaos. When that time comes, I'm afraid that it will bring even more trouble to Jing Yunzhao." Li Xiaoyun sat in the room as a man opposite him spoke. An ordinary man's wealth is his own ruin. Regardless of whether the treasure was real or fake, as long as outsiders heard about it, they would definitely believe it to be real rather than not at all. There might even be some people from the enemy country who would be interested in it. When that time comes, Jing Yunzhao would become a shining target. Li Xiaoyun's eyes were cold. The corner of his mouth was faintly curled up. His handsome features carried a kind of chill. "It's okay to report this matter. I can handle it. However, this Zhong Ming, find a way to find fault with him. I don't want to see him anymore," Li Xiaoyun said simply. Treasure. What did Zhong Ming think the military was? Robbers. Thinking back, the Jing family had secretly helped a lot of the military. Now, they had no right to burn the bridge after crossing the river. The Jing family did have a lot of wealth in the past, but it was too much to call it a treasure. However, this money was almost all used up. The military was one of the beneficiaries. The remaining assets of the Jing and Su families were all registered. The remaining assets of the Su family were rare and precious medicinal herbs. The remaining assets of the Jing family were burial goods. If they even touched the burial goods, then they couldn't be considered the country's guardians. As for the medical books and martial arts manuals, it wasn't a big problem. Young Master Li, this Zhong Ming is also a famous doctor. It is benevolent of him to come here to treat Elder Qi's illness. We can't be too ruthless, the person in the house said. If you can't do it, then I'll do it. Don't be too careful around Elder Qi these few days. After all, his identity couldn't be exposed. You want to use Elder Qi as a target? The officer's expression changed, and he asked disapprovingly. Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows and glanced at him. Elder Qi is in good health now, so there's no need to take care of him so tightly. Of course, we can save on the surface, but we can't do less in the dark. Don't worry, I'll look after Elder Qi. Nothing will happen. With that said, the officer could only acquiesce. Although Li Xiaoyun was young, he carried enough weight. Since he had appeared half a month ago, everyone here had listened to his orders. Of course, as a bystander, the officer in front of him didn't have any dissatisfaction. After all, although he wasn't clear about some things, as someone close to Elder Qi, he knew Li Xiaoyun's identity. Although he was young, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he had experienced hundreds of battles. With him around, even if everyone else withdrew, nothing would happen to Elder Qi. Li Xiaoyun gave the order, and on the same day, the situation changed. Most of the military forces on the mountain were sent down in the name of doing good deeds for the people. They were all at the foot of the mountain. There were a total of 3 people guarding the courtyard, and there was only one person outside the old man's door. Occasionally, he would be absent due to personal matters. It could be said that the entire mansion became much quieter. Jing Yunzhao didn't understand this sudden change and felt that it was a little strange. At noon, after settling the old man's lunch, he directly went to find Li Xiaoyun and asked him about it. Chapter 1277. She hadn't talked to Li Xiaoyun for so many days. Seeing him like a stranger, she suddenly felt a little funny. As soon as they met, Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but ask, "Brother Bing, do you want to have dinner together?" Jing Yunzhao's tone was learned from Hua Tianxian. She raised her eyebrows, which was supposed to be flirtatious, but it was completely different from Hua Tianxian's. It was like a female bandit in the mountains who had taken a fancy to a poor little scholar. "No." Li Xiaoyun's mouth twitched and he said. Jing Yunzhao raised her eyebrows. "Isn't it just because I haven't seen you for a few days? You have quite a temper. Since you don't want to meet me, I'm leaving." She deliberately turned around, but Li Xiaoyun directly grabbed her arm and pulled her over. "You want to leave after flirting with me? Are you offending the dignity of a soldier? You? I'm not wearing a military uniform now." Jing Yunzhao laughed. If he was wearing a formal suit, she would immediately stand at attention and would only talk about business and not private matters. After all, in front of such a majestic man, she only admired and respected him, and couldn't feel any blasphemy. But at this time, Li Xiaoyun was wearing casual clothes. Because of his disguise, he looked like an extremely ordinary man. He even looked a little burly, and he even looked a few years older. Li Xiaoyun's eyes were very restrained at this time, and he was not as flamboyant as before. He said, "Dr. Jing, don't forget that you have a man in your family. I'm a decent man, and I can't mess around." When Jing Yunzhao heard this, the corners of her mouth twitched and she laughed. It was just a change of appearance. Why was he so serious with her? "Then I'll go home and dump my old flame before coming to you. But you're not as good looking as him. Won't I be at a disadvantage?" Jing Yunzhao's eyes shone and she said with a smile. "Am I ugly? It took me a long time to choose this face." Li Xiaoyun touched his chin and felt the touch of the fake beard on the artificial mask. He grinned. "It's not as good looking as your original face," Jing Yunzhao praised from the bottom of her heart. Li Xiaoyun's face was indeed that of a demon, but this one wasn't ugly. After all, it was very pleasing to the eye, and his righteous appearance was quite attractive. Of course. Li Xiaoyun bluntly accepted Jing Yunzhao's compliment and said, "Are you here to ask me about the garrison?" "Yeah, why are there so many people missing all of a sudden?" Jing Yunzhao nodded. "I'm just waiting for the fish to take the bait. You can accompany Elder Qi as usual these days. You don't have to stay close to him. Also, after Elder Qi's matter is over, the military will probably send a few people to the Su family. At that time, you may need to spend some effort to teach them some practical medical skills. It doesn't have to be too complicated." Although Li Xiaoyun said the last few words with certainty, there was also a hint of inquiry in his eyes. Jing Yunzhao understood what he meant. Practical medical skills were nothing more than life-saving skills. As for medical theories and the like, there was no need to care too much about them. Although she didn't know why Li Xiaoyun would ask for this, he rarely asked her to do anything, so Jing Yunzhao didn't even think about it and directly nodded in agreement. "Aren't you curious why I'm doing this?" Li Xiaoyun asked with a smile. I'm curious, but when the time comes, I'll know the reason. As long as you don't harm me, Jing Yunzhao pursed her lips and said softly. The smile in Li Xiaoyun's eyes was obvious. Since the Jing family's medical skills were eye-catching, the best way was to directly push it to the military. Even if the military really wanted those magical prescriptions, they wouldn't do something immoral, not to mention he was there to suppress them. If Jing Yunzhao agreed to teach them some practical and simple medical skills, then it would be best. Chapter 1278. As for the matter of the treasure, no one would believe it. Zhong Ming's ability to spread rumors was indeed very high, but he didn't even consider the possibility of this rumor being true in the eyes of the higher-ups. At this time, Li Xiaoyun deliberately concealed his identity, so Jing Yunzhao couldn't chat with him for too long. After dawdling for 10 minutes, she went to do her own things. The frequency of Qi Yugua's pain flared up was getting lower and lower, and there were already signs of improvement. She didn't need to be too tired, so she had more private time. Zhong Ming and the others were waiting for the higher-ups to put pressure on Jing Yunzhao. However, after waiting for a few days, Jing Yunzhao was still fine. Seeing that Qi Yugua's condition was getting better day by day, Zhong Ming was a little confused. During this time, Zhong Ming naturally went to ask personally, and even suspected that the officer didn't contact the higher-ups. However, the officer called again in front of him, and he was suddenly speechless. But since he had already told the higher-ups, why was there no response? Was it because of the Li family? However, he wasn't very clear about the relationship between Jing Yunzhao and the Li family, who rarely cared about worldly affairs. But thinking about it, at most, it was a doctor and patient relationship. After all, he heard that Li Junwei was already quite old, and perhaps his health wasn't very good. For a few days, Dr. Zhong Ming tossed and turned in bed. He was even prepared to talk to the higher-ups in detail, but after waiting and waiting, it was all in vain. Dr. Zhong, the higher-ups have said that the Jing family doesn't have the so-called treasure. You can't spread rumors. What's more, we're soldiers, not bandits. We can't do things like snatching people's things. These few years, you doctors have also had a hard time taking care of Elder Qi. The higher-ups thought that since Jing Yunzhao has the Jing family's most profound medical skills in her hands, then let her complete the remaining tasks. We'll find a time to send you guys back in the next few days. What do you think, is that okay? Inside the room, the person sitting on the chair asked Zhong Ming. The other party spoke very politely, but Dr. Zhong felt that he had lost all face at this time. Jing Yunzhao gives Elder Qi a mess of food every day. Otherwise, with the prescription in her hands, Elder Qi would have recovered long ago. Didn't you tell the higher-ups about this? Zhong Ming hurriedly asked. Of course. We've also observed Jing Yunzhao's actions during this time and really didn't find any problems. Elder Qi is a hero, and not an unpardonable criminal. Not only is he in a good mood, but he is also healthy. That's what the higher-ups are most happy to see, the other party said. After hearing this, Zhong Ming's face turned ashen. From the looks of it, he's been a clown these few days. How he had been so righteous and After thinking about it, Zhong Ming thought of a fact and quickly asked, how does the military know that the Jing family doesn't have any treasures? When the other party heard this, he immediately laughed. Dr. Zhong, I don't know where you heard that news from, but I can only say that it's too fake. Don't tell me you don't know what the chaotic times were like in the past. If the Jing family really had the treasure, it would have been snatched away long ago. How could it be kept until now? The only thing left of the Jing family is the graveyard. There are many poisons that have been passed down for thousands of years. Who would dig them up? Besides, it's just some funerary objects. There can't be much. It's too exaggerated to say that it's a treasure. Zhong Ming's face darkened. So it was because the higher-ups had already investigated the Jing family that his words didn't count. Chapter 1279. Thinking of this, Zhong Ming's anger couldn't be extinguished. He couldn't remember what the person beside him said. He only felt that his heart was beating very fast. After Elder Qi recovers, the military has decided to reward her. The reward will definitely not be low. When the time comes, I guarantee that her reputation will soar and she will be worthy of the Jing family's contributions from many years ago. As for you, old doctor, I'll let this matter go, but the same thing can't happen again. Otherwise, you'll be going against the military, do you understand? The officer said with a hint of threat. Zhong Ming walked out of the house in a daze, his ears buzzing. After a while, he returned to his house and called Li Wenbo. Dr. Zhong Ming and Li Wenbo were about the same age. The moment they spoke, they called each other old brother and little brother happily. After that, Zhong Ming began to talk about serious matters. Little brother Li, I wanted the military to give Jing Yunzhao a bad impression, but it didn't work at all. Now, the military even wants to chase us doctors away. When Li Wenbo heard this, he thought of Jing Yunzhao's face and was instantly disgusted. I didn't expect that girl to be so capable. I underestimated her before and kept her for so long. Li Wenbo said before continuing, old brother Zhong, I can't do anything to Jing Yunzhao right now, so I can only rely on you for everything. You have to know, if she successfully comes back from old Qi's place, then her status will increase exponentially. You, who have offended her, definitely won't have a good ending. Speaking of which, no matter what, I'm still her biological grandfather. No matter how big her guts are, the most she can do is steal my family's wealth. She won't go so far as to harm my life, but you, Zhong Ming cursed in his heart, Li Wenbo, this old thief. He wasn't someone to be trifled with. How could he not know what he meant? Wasn't he forcing him to make a move? But he, Li Wenbo, had no way, so what could he do? At the thought of this, an image suddenly flashed across Zhong Ming's mind. He thought of the current loose defense, but after thinking about it, he was a little scared. After all, if he exposed himself, then his days would be difficult. He would definitely be imprisoned. Moreover, even if something happened to Jing Yunzhao, the higher-ups would still be suspicious of him. Even the Su family would not let him off the hook. The Li family's attitude now, Zhong Ming rubbed his glabella. At this juncture, he could not retreat. Otherwise, his decades of effort would be wasted. After barely dealing with Li Wenbo with a few words, Zhong Ming hung up the phone and sighed repeatedly. Instead, as time passed, a hint of viciousness appeared on his wrinkled face. Jing Yunzhao had bullied him too much. No matter what, he couldn't let this person overshadow him. 2 days later, Jing Yunzhao cooked according to her usual routine. However, when she was about to use the salt, she felt that something was wrong. Just as she was about to bring the salt to find someone to deal with it, she was blocked by Li Xiaoyun. After understanding what was going on, he was relieved. The food was delivered to Elder Qi as usual. Nothing unexpected happened. The old man ate happily as usual. However, as he ate, he suddenly trembled and fell onto the bed. There was a commotion outside. Jing Yunzhao looked at Qi Yugua's acting skills. The corner of his mouth twitched fiercely, and he couldn't help but secretly praise him. Something happened. Elder Qi is dead. Those troops are coming up the mountain. No one is allowed to leave, and everyone has to be checked. Not long after, someone ran in front of Zhong Ming and shouted. Chapter 1280. Zhong Ming was already extremely nervous after taking action. Now that he received news of Elder Chi's death, he panicked. He was both scared and happy. You said you want to investigate everyone. Why? Isn't it Jing Yunzhao? After a few seconds, Zhong Ming suddenly felt that something was wrong and hurriedly asked. Logically speaking, the first person to take responsibility for Elder Chi's death was Jing Yunzhao. There was no need to investigate at all. Wouldn't it be fine to just arrest Jing Yunzhao? But now, Dr. Zhong, Elder Chi was poisoned to death. It has nothing to do with Dr. Jing, the other party said directly. What? Zhong Ming's heart shrank fiercely. He wished that he had misunderstood the meaning of the words. At this moment, the scene of him poisoning her surfaced in his mind. This kitchen wasn't an important place, a few doctors could have gone there. Therefore, other than him, there must have been someone else who went there. He definitely wasn't the most suspicious one. He originally thought that Jing Yunzhao would be unlucky, but he didn't think that she wasn't a suspect at all. This move of his had the meaning of lifting a rock and smashing it on his own feet. Zhong Ming's eyes flashed. After asking the informant to leave, he hesitated for a while. After thinking about it, he still chose to meet someone just in case. At this time, in Elder Chi's ward, Jing Yunzhao looked at the old man's ashen face and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Elder Chi, everyone has left. We're going to move now. Do you want to prepare? Jing Yunzhao asked with a smile. Elder Chi opened his eyes and snorted a few times. Do I look like I'm playing dead? Yes. Jing Yunzhao nodded. That's right. Back then, on the battlefield, the small team I led was completely wiped out. I hid in the mountains alone for a few days. When there was nowhere to hide, I relied on this skill of playing dead to muddle my way through the enemy's eyes. Elder Chi's face didn't have a proud expression. Instead, it was filled with deep nostalgia. These few days, Jing Yunzhao also brought him to the nearby mountains to catch game. However, it was different from before. While Elder Chi was happy, he also felt emotional. Xiaoyun, don't you already have evidence of Zhong Ming's poisoning? Why keep him alive? Jing Yunzhao asked curiously. Originally, he didn't plan to let Elder Chi pretend to be dead. After all, they already had the evidence of him being poisoned, so they could just directly close the net. However, when Elder Chi heard that someone had poisoned him, he immediately acted. There was no other way. They could only follow his wishes and make him happy. From the looks of it, he probably wanted to see how the people outside would react if they knew that he had passed away. In short, the news of Elder Chi's death had already spread. Without Elder Chi and Li Xiaoyun's orders, the people here wouldn't say anything to the outside world. I haven't been idle during this period of time. Elder Chi has been here for a few years, and he has been assassinated several times in a row. There is a high chance that there are spies from the enemy country here, and this spy must be in contact with one of the doctors. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to obtain such detailed information. Right now, the outside world knows that Elder Chi has gone, but we still have to let Elder Chi show his face later. Taking advantage of the chaos, the spy will probably make a move. We might as well catch all of them in one fell swoop, said Li Xiaoyun. He felt somewhat helpless. Elder Chi was too fond of looking for trouble. If the news of his death hadn't spread, the enemy might have thought that there was an opening for them to take advantage of when someone poisoned him. But now, they had to do something superfluous. Chapter 1281. Li Xiaoyun sighed faintly. Although it was a little troublesome, what was certain was that if he was the person hiding in the dark, he would definitely take action before the soldiers at the foot of the mountain arrived. After all, after this incident, the security would definitely be tighter, and the other party would not be able to get close to them. The only chance was to see if they could seize it. Jing Yunzhao did not know much about catching spies, but she was a little more cautious. How about this, just in case, I will follow Elder Qi from now on and never leave his side, Jing Yunzhao said. You're really not afraid of death, Qi Yugua said again. In fact, to Jing Yunzhao, Qi Yugua's personality was somewhat similar to her grandfather's at this time, especially when she and her grandfather had not acknowledged each other. Her grandfather also had a bad temper and rarely praised her, but he was also stubborn and soft-hearted. Older people would more or less yearn for the care and concern of the younger generation, but because of their face, they could not ask for it, so their temper was a little strange. Li Xiaoyun knew Jing Yunzhao's ability, so he did not refuse and nodded in response. Immediately, he moved the person to another room. At this time, Li Xiaoyun sent people outside to explain the rumors just now, so in a short while, a trace of suspicion filled the airtight courtyard. Almost no one could be sure whether Qi Yugua was dead or alive. Zhong Ming, who had just confirmed Qi Yugua's death, was confused when he heard the rumors outside. Didn't they say Qi Yugua is dead? Go and see what's going on now. In the dark, a woman in a nurse's uniform said directly to Zhong Ming. Looking at the woman in front of him, Zhong Ming was a little scared. He wanted to refuse her request, but he also knew that even if the other party failed the mission, she had enough power to send his soul to heaven. I developed that poison myself. Once you touch it, you'll die. Moreover, it's very difficult to tell the difference. Qi Yugua can't be alive. I think those people deliberately told a lie to prevent the military from getting into trouble. Zhong Ming frowned and analyzed. That's impossible. Lies will always be exposed. There's no need for that. The woman said and then said, all right, don't talk nonsense. I just want you to confirm it. If Qi Yugua is not dead, you must find out where he is now. We have limited time. We must complete the mission before the soldiers come back. Zhong Ming choked. He really did not know why he was always the unlucky one. Originally, coming here to treat Qi Yugua's illness was a good job. However, there was actually a spy who came to find him. If one only looked at the other party's appearance, they would never believe that she was from another country. His life was in the hands of this person, and on the other hand, the other party had promised him a better future. Take the current situation for example. If he was really found out, this person would be able to take care of everything for him and go to another country to live out his remaining years in peace. Zhong Ming did not dare to show his dissatisfaction. He immediately nodded and left as if nothing had happened. Zhong Ming came to Qi Yugua's room as usual. He saw that all the military forces in the courtyard had gathered at the door. With one look, he knew something was wrong. I would like to ask. How is Elder Qi? Just now, someone said that he had passed away. I am really worried. Zhong Ming asked one of them with a worried expression. Chapter 1282. Li Xiaoyun looked at Zhong Ming in front of him, his heart cold. Currently, all the doctors were in danger, afraid that others would suspect them. Hence, almost all of them obediently obeyed orders and didn't run around. They wouldn't come here at all, but Zhong Ming came. Not only that, but when he spoke, his eyes were vaguely looking into the room. Although he was very low-key, it wasn't like he couldn't see such a small problem. He didn't expect Zhong Ming to be so bold. Deceiving one's master and killing one's ancestors wasn't a big mistake in this era, but treason was different. To steal confidential information so openly, did he think they were all dead? Dr. Zhong, no one is allowed to enter at the moment, so you should go back quickly. It's best not to ask about things that you shouldn't know. Li Xiaoyun restrained his aura and pretended to be polite. When Zhong Ming heard that, his heart pounded. He glanced through the glass again, and his heart jumped. He saw the wavy lines on the medical equipment. He wasn't dead yet. His body trembled violently, and his lips were a little dry. He felt extremely uncomfortable. He wasn't dead. This was great. In a while, those spies would definitely make a move. It would be best if they succeeded. Otherwise, what would he do if the other party dragged him down? He left the place worriedly, but he didn't know that he had been targeted for a long time. Watch carefully. Don't let anyone come close. After Zhong Ming left, Li Xiaoyun also went to Jing Yunzhao and Qi Yugua's side. This game of cat and mouse had just begun. After Zhong Ming returned, he hurriedly told the spy what he had seen. However, when the spy heard that, he frowned. Walk around now. I suspect that Qi Yugua isn't there at all. He was just poisoned. There aren't many soldiers on this mountain, so it's not safe for them. Therefore, it's very likely that everyone gathered together to put on an act. The real Qi Yugua was transferred to a secret place to wait for the other soldiers to arrive. Why is it so troublesome? Zhong Ming subconsciously said. He had already gone back and forth several times today. What if he was discovered? The problem was that there were many rooms here, and the internal structure was like a maze. Who knew where Elder Qi was hidden? I advise you to be smart. If our matter is exposed, don't think about leaving here alive. The woman's face turned cold. It's impossible that there isn't someone watching Qi Yugua. We just need to see if there's someone waiting at the door of that room. Also, the young doctor who treated Qi Yugua must be there too. I know you have a grudge. I can guarantee you that as long as the information you give me is true, I will help you get rid of that girl. When she said that, Zhong of her of course. Of course. All right. Zhong Ming immediately agreed. That, he's of was of the sons. But he that was of the s. T was of wood. T. Of that. But the tt. But teet. This house was located at the very corner of the courtyard. It was rather dark, as if it was dusk. However, there was a ray of light coming from inside, and there was a man standing at the door. Chapter 1283. Seeing this strange room, Zhong Ming finally breathed a sigh of relief and sent out the location. When the woman heard that the room was in the most remote place, she immediately sneered. She was originally worried that the other party was deliberately luring the enemy, but if it was really luring the enemy, they wouldn't have done it so secretly. It seemed that Qi Yugua was indeed hiding inside. Suddenly, they moved in all directions. Jing Yunzhao was currently sitting opposite of Qi Yugua. The two of them continued to play chess. You kill, I steal. After the first time they played chess, the two of them started to treat chess as a form of entertainment and were no longer as serious about it. Thus, their skill levels were about the same. This group of trash, why aren't they here yet? Qi Yugua placed a piece with a pa sound inside. Aren't you afraid that both of us will lose our lives after they come? Jing Yunzhao asked with a smile. If you're afraid of death, then why did you follow? Qi Yugua snorted and said, Don't worry, isn't that kid from the Li family guarding the door? It's not a problem to keep you safe. Besides, those people's target is me, not you. They won't kill one more person and waste the opportunity to escape. Jing Yunzhao shook her head. Li Xiaoyun had just told her the truth. This old Dr. Zhong Ming should be the doctor who was bribed by the spy. Zhong Ming had always disliked her, so how could he not want to take this opportunity to get rid of her? Just as she was thinking, there was a sudden noise from outside. Jing Yunzhao quickly turned her head and looked outside. She saw that Li Xiaoyun had already started fighting with the other party, and the sound of gunfire was incessant. With a bang, the door was kicked open, and a woman holding a gun in her hand directly shot over. There was actually more than one person on the other side. There were a total of 3 spies. However, the guns in these people's hands were not big, and they were very self-made. They should have spent a lot of effort to send them in. Every bullet was more precious, so this woman also held a katana in her hand. The muzzle of the gun was aimed, and 2 people rushed out from the dark in the room to protect the old man behind them. Little Jing. Qi Yugui saw that Jing Yunzhao was still in front and hurriedly called out in exasperation. However, before he finished speaking, Jing Yunzhao's figure flashed and directly dodged the other party's bullet. The next moment, there was a gun in her hand, and with a bang, she instantly exploded the head. Jing Yunzhao's shot was somewhat lucky because the other party didn't expect that she, this little girl, would have an attack weapon hidden in her hand and aimed so accurately. Another spy in the room and started aiming at her full strength. Jing Yunzhao, after all, although the gun was very lethal, it was still not suitable for close combat. Of the gun was, of course, of a guns of Soviet. After all, guns was not very suitable for close combat of melee of the time and was of the time. Of the time. At this moment, Qi Yugui could only see that the explosive power of this small body was extremely strong. The palm wind and fist wind actually carried a hidden force. If he was really hit by a punch, he was afraid that his bones would be shattered immediately. Originally, he was worried that this little girl's life would be in danger, but now that he saw her ability, he suddenly choked in his heart and didn't say anything. This method was not inferior to his ability at his peak. But when he was young, he suffered a lot in order to learn martial arts. Moreover, he specially went to some of the remaining sects to be apprenticed. Later, after some training, he became better and better. Ordinary people couldn't compare to him at all. But how old was this Jing Yunzhao? Could it be that she was a rare martial arts genius? Chapter 1284. At this time, Li Xiaoyun was also fighting fiercely with the spy outside. Every punch and kick carried a strong murderous intent. Every move was fatal, and the other party was beginning to lose. Qi Yugui looked at the 2 people inside and outside the house. He was surprised and relieved at the same time. These 2 people were both very talented. Perhaps because of her background, Jing Yunzhao's understanding was slightly less than Li Xiaoyun's, who had been on missions for many years. However, in terms of ability, both of them were the kind of people who could save the world. It was just that they were now in an era of peace, so it was more or less a waste of talent. Qi Yugui's thoughts had completely changed. It was all because of the seemingly weak Jing Yunzhao in front of him. In the past, in his eyes, Jing Yunzhao only knew superficial moves like health-preserving boxing. Usually, she could only cook and treat illnesses. She could not be a powerful person. He even felt that although she was passable with Li Xiaoyun, he always felt that something was missing. However, at this moment, his thoughts were somewhat different. That brat Li Xiaoyun could find such a girl. It was simply a blessing of 3 lifetimes. While Qi Yugui was admiring her, the remaining 2 spies did not have much resistance and began to prepare to escape. However, at this time, many people suddenly appeared in the nearby houses that were originally very quiet. Everyone had a gun and directly blocked their way. They did not appear at first to avoid unnecessary sacrifices. After all, the two men still had bullets in their guns at the beginning. However, they were now out of bullets. Moreover, this was the peak of the spies' combat power. They might be able to use the enemies around them as meat shields. It would be a pity if they were sacrificed when the time came. Now that a group of people appeared, the situation was over. "You've already planned this," the woman in the nurse's uniform said coldly. He thought that it was not a trap, but he did not expect. Moreover, looking at so many soldiers, it was obvious that the previous rumor that the soldiers had gone down the mountain to repair the road was false. Even if some people did go, it was definitely not all of them. It was probably only a small part of them. "You're not innocent," Li Xiaoyun sneered. At this moment, in order to prevent these people from forcefully struggling, Jing Yunzhao directly sprinkled some powder on them. Instantly, the two people held their breaths. However, just when they thought that the smell of the powder had dissipated, Jing Yunzhao sprinkled the real powder on them. Instantly, the two people inhaled quite a bit of it and fainted within 2 seconds. My Zhao is getting more and more sinister. When everyone caught the two spies, Li Xiaoyun moved close to her ear and said flirtatiously, "Didn't I learn it from you?" Jing Yunzhao smiled. In terms of treachery, how could he compare to him? With just one Zhongming, he actually managed to find out the other party's 3 spies. 1 was dead and 2 were injured. When they returned, they would definitely interrogate these 2 people strictly. It would be best if they could catch a few more spies in the country. Zhao, you should have some medicine that can make people lose their minds, right? I want something with better effects. Li Xiaoyun's eyes were filled with flattery. Jing Yunzhao pursed his lips helplessly. I'll give it to you later. Those medicines were not humane and were prohibited in the spirit jade. The ancestors had said that unless there was no other choice, they should not use those messy medicines to harm people. However, the situation was urgent. Now that they had caught a spy, a villain who could harm the country, it should not be a problem to use them, right? Everything was settled. Jing Yunzhao supported the old master to rest and left many people to guard him. He was prepared to meet Zhongming personally. From the moment he heard the non-stop gunshots, Zhongming knew that he was finished. Chapter 1285. If Qi Yugua's room only had Jing Yunzhao and a soldier standing guard outside, then the gunshots wouldn't have been so concentrated. That spy must have also wanted to escape unscathed. Once the gunshot rang out, it was necessary to end the battle in a short amount of time. Thus, when the gunshot rang out, it meant that the situation was very urgent. Zhongming's face was ashen and pale. He looked at the soldier in front of him and felt even more hopeless. The moment the gunshot was fired, he was taken into custody. Dr. Zhong, you've really broadened my horizons, Jing Yunzhao said as she lowered her head to look at Zhongming, who was in low spirits. Jing Yunzhao. Zhongming's voice was hoarse. She really didn't die. She lost, it was over. I want to know, when you contacted the spy, did you have the Li family's intentions? Jing Yunzhao asked directly. She was a person with a bottom line. She might be able to forgive or tolerate heinous sinners, but for someone who didn't betray the country, she definitely didn't have the right to let them go. However, she was just asking. After all, she didn't think that Li Wenbo would be so stupid as to put himself in the most dangerous situation. Once he betrayed the country, his reputation would be completely ruined at any time and he would never be able to make a comeback. Li Wenbo cherished his life and still wanted to make the Jing family's assets his own. He wouldn't make such a desperate move. However, Zhong Ming in front of him was different. He wanted too many things and Li Wenbo wasn't a reliable person. That was why he would find so many ways to escape and plan for himself. Yes. Zhong Ming said through gritted teeth. Jing Yunzhao smiled. Dr. Zhong, I think Li Wenbo should have grasped your shortcomings, right? Otherwise, why would you say that? I'm asking you, but it doesn't mean that I'm suspicious. It's just a casual remark. The more he said there was, the less there was. However, no matter what Li Wenbo was, she and the Li family were like fire and water. Once Qi Yugua recovered, all the advantages that Li Wenbo had would be gone. Zhong Ming gritted his teeth. You're just a little girl, but you defeated me. It's not that my strength is inferior to yours, but that my fate is inferior to yours. If he was a descendant of the Jing clan, or even a clansman, at the very least, he would be qualified to learn the core content, unlike back then, when he was always sitting on the bench. Dr. Zhong, I asked about you before I came. Jing Yunzhao's expression was cold as she continued, my grandfather said that among the Jing family's disciples, you're the one with the most talent in medicine. However, when you were the head of the Jing family, your master had already noticed that even though you have some talent, you're not suited for this line of work. Nonsense. Zhong Ming's beard trembled. How old are you? How do you know what happened back then? I'm a few years older than your grandmother, and she wasn't even as good as me when we started out. How can you say that I'm not suitable for this line of work? My obsession with medicine is all for the sake of curing illnesses and saving lives. Your Jing family must be blind to be so disdainful of me. After saying that, he panted heavily. You're not obsessed with medicine, you're obsessed with fame. Jing Yunzhao continued coldly, I heard Grandpa say that when you were still an apprentice, you liked to be picky. You looked down on the poor with your snobbish eyes. You even thought about how you could hook up with the rich and noble so that you could become a famous doctor in one leap. When it comes to saving lives, the Jing family has strict requirements for everyone. I said several times that you have no medical ethics not only because I'm targeting you, but also because I want you to think clearly. Jing Yunzhao continued. If he hadn't been a disciple of the Jing family, she wouldn't have said anything. Chapter 1286. Jing Yunzhao's words caused Zhong Ming to fly into a rage out of humiliation. His old face was filled with a pair of ferocious eyes, as if he was looking at the past Jing Wenyue through Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao's words were not meant to add insult to injury. He was merely stating a fact that even he himself did not want to admit. Grandfather had said that during the war, some people were glorious while others were in dire straits. It was common to see corpses strewn all over the streets. As the doctor of the Jing family, Zhong Ming's duty was to treat the sick and save people. However, he could not stand the fact that the Jing family had lost all their wealth. He was even dismissive of those who came to ask for help. If it were not for the pressure from above, he would have rebelled long ago and would not have waited until after Jing Wenyue's death to find another way out. Zhong Ming was indeed infatuated with medical skills. However, in his eyes, medical skills were just a convenience and a means for him to achieve success. After all, in the past, it was difficult for people who did not have a skill to survive. Dr. Zhong, without the Jing family, you would not have the medical skills you have today. Therefore, I am here to take back our Jing family's things, Jing Yunzhao said coldly after a moment. Zhong Ming's pupils shrank and his old face tensed up. What are you trying to do? Jing Yunzhao's eyes flashed and the dagger from before slipped out of her sleeve. Before Zhong Ming could cry out in pain, Jing Yunzhao had already made her move and crippled the tendons in his hands. As for Zhong Ming's life, she did not need to do anything. After all, he was being watched and would definitely be tried by the military. If he had cheated, he might have been able to keep his life. However, after doing such a thing, it was impossible for him to enjoy his old age peacefully. She would not be so stupid as to plead for mercy for such a person. Although he looked pitiful in his old age, he only had himself to blame. Only Zhong Ming's sorrowful cries could be heard in the room. When the guards saw this, they only glanced at Jing Yunzhao in surprise. They did not go forward to stop her and even allowed her to leave. Everyone knew that it was all thanks to Jing Yunzhao's cooperation with young Master Li that the 3 spies were successfully captured. Jing Yunzhao's presence might not have played a decisive role, but young Master Li would not have ignored Elder Qi and directly attacked the enemy. Now that the spy had been caught, there was a relaxed atmosphere around the mountain. For such a long time, the old man had cooperated with the act and spent his energy playing chess. Now that the matter was over, he immediately went to sleep. Li Xiaoyun, on the other hand, went to deal with the spy. He was the one who caught the spy, and with his status, he was qualified to interrogate him. Jing Yunzhao rarely had free time, so he went to the space and stayed there for a few hours. However, not long after, someone knocked on her door. When she opened the door, she saw that it was a young man who was in charge of sending her a letter. His expression seemed a little serious, as if he was worried about her. He said, "Dr. Jing, there's someone in the hall who wants to see you." "Who?" Jing Yunzhao opened her mouth and asked. "This. They are some officers from the military region." "General Li is also here," the other party replied. General Li was probably referring to Li Junwei. Jing Yunzhao thought for a moment and suddenly realized something. She quickly asked, "Are they here because of the news of Elder Qi's death? Have you not told them the truth yet?" "That's right. Although we wanted to tell them, Elder Qi gave the order not to let them know. He wanted to see who would be unable to sit still." The person in front of her was a little conflicted. He looked at Jing Yunzhao with a face full of sympathy. Chapter 1287. She was the one who had to bear the consequences of Elder Qi's sins. Even if Zhong Ming, who had poisoned him, had been arrested, she was still the one in charge of Elder Qi's health. If she didn't take precautions, it would be a dereliction of duty. Furthermore, at her age, it was easy for people to misunderstand her. She would definitely be at a disadvantage. Fortunately, Grandpa Li was there. Even if Li Xiaoyun wasn't there, that group of people might not be able to do anything to her. Jing Yunzhao let out a sigh of relief and followed the person who sent the message. Not long after, she stepped into the room and saw the elders sitting there. She had never thought that she would meet so many legendary figures one day. She was really blessed by 3 lifetimes. As soon as she appeared, the elders in front of her all stared at her. They all looked a bit fierce. At this time, their eyes were sad and angry, but they were deliberately suppressing it, which made it even more creepy. Fortunately, Jing Yunzhao wasn't a timid person at all. At this time, she was still calm. There were about 7 or 8 elders in the room. The rest were the guards and some other doctors, except for Zhong Ming. "You are Jing Yunzhao?" someone in the room asked. "I am," Jing Yunzhao replied. "You've got guts, huh? You actually killed Elder Qi. Tell me. Are you a spy?" the other person shouted again. Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. Ever since she met Li Xiaoyun and Grandpa Li, she knew that one day she might meet some high and mighty people, so she specially checked. The person who spoke should be the chief staff officer of a certain military region. His identity was also very prominent, but he looked more refined than the others. She didn't expect him to be so fierce. Aren't you all thinking too much? If I were a spy, I wouldn't have helped you catch the spy, Jing Yunzhao said slowly. Li Junwei looked at her expression and felt a little suspicious. He had also known this obedient child for a long time. She looked cold, but in reality, she was a very affectionate child. Elder Qi had died, but there was nothing wrong with her. Her eyes were clear, without the slightest hint of redness, and there was a polite smile on her lips. Something was wrong. Could it be? Li Junwei's heart trembled, and his old face trembled. Compared to the others, he understood Qi Yugua better. That old thing looked like he was well versed in both civil and military affairs, but in reality, he was more cunning than coal holes. Otherwise, he would not have been able to raise such a group of people in the midst of war. He had wanted to test this group of people before, but he had put it aside because of his health. But now, it was not impossible for him to take advantage of this opportunity to see who could not sit still and wanted to rebel. Thinking of this, Li Junwei's expression did not change, but he was laughing inside. Don't look at how this group of people came to denounce him so aggressively. In reality, they were just putting on a show. There was definitely sadness. However, Elder Qi was an old man after all. Everyone was prepared. Now that Elder Qi is dead, the balance that they had worked hard to maintain had been broken. They could only work hard to gain the upper hand. No one wished for the forces that they had nurtured for so many years to fail because they were a step too slow. Therefore, behind the scenes, they had already begun to make their moves. Those who needed to be plotted were already plotting, and those who needed to be plotted were already plotting. It was a pity that these people were too afraid of losing. That was why they felt that Elder Qi would not joke around with his life. And that old man Qi Yugua was really ruthless. He probably wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to teach them a lesson. Li Junwei coughed dryly and suddenly said, "Sigh, Elder Qi treated me like his own son. Now that he's gone, what's the point of me living? Sigh, forget it. Power and reputation are all ephemeral. I'm prepared to give up power. I don't want to take advantage of anything." Chapter 1288. Li Junwei's sorrowful expression stunned everyone. When they heard what he said, it was as if they had seen a ghost. Li Junwei indeed didn't love power. This was something everyone knew. Otherwise, he wouldn't hide at home every year during festivals and wouldn't meet anyone no matter who came. But even so, the people under him were truly loyal. They had all fought together on the battlefield, or they had all received great kindness from him. In addition, he hadn't done anything wrong all these years. Even his own son was just doing idle work, so he wasn't that eye-catching. But in reality, everyone knew that if Li Junwei really fought for power, this situation could easily be broken. The only thing that made them feel at ease was that there weren't many people in the Li family. Li Junwei's children didn't have any capable people, and only one grandson was pretty good. But no matter how promising this grandson was, he was still young. Li Junwei didn't need to fight for him at all. It was better to guard the family business he had now and get more in the future. But at this time, Li Junwei suddenly interrupted. Everyone looked at each other, but it wasn't good for them to continue glaring at each other. Because of this, they began to miss Elder Qi. Jing Yunzhao was surprised for a while, but after thinking about it, she felt that Li Xiaoyun might have told him in advance, so Grandpa Li would put on such a good show. Jing Yunzhao didn't think that Li Junwei would see the problem from her reaction. She just quietly watched their reactions and didn't say anything. Oldly, this girl was recommended by a member of the Jing clan, but I heard that you were also her guarantor. Now, because of her, Elder Qi actually passed away. Although she's young, she still has to bear some responsibility for this matter, right? Not long after, someone brought it up again. Li Junwei's eyes widened, and he immediately turned hostile. What do you mean? I already expressed my attitude just now. Elder Qi has passed away. I don't care what you do with the rest, but if you want to blame it on me, I won't. Li Junwei was a general who intimidated the three armies after all. When his face was cold, it was a bit scary. I didn't say that I wanted to settle the score with you. I just wanted to ask you how to deal with this little girl. The person who had spoken just now thought for a while and took a step back. He didn't continue to pester them. They knew in their hearts that if they provoked Li Junwei and he suddenly intervened, it would be a mess. We came here in a hurry. We only heard that Elder Qi was poisoned to death. We don't know the details yet. The person who poisoned him is not Yun Zhao. She just entered the door. You're yelling at her one moment and yelling at her the next. Aren't you not giving me face? Li Junwei said with a cold face, and then said, you can punish her if you want, but I have to listen to her explanation. You can't just say what's right and wrong. Is this a democratic era? Those who can cover the sky with one hand are the old emperors of the past, aren't you? Everyone's expression didn't look too good. They didn't blindly want to make things difficult for a little girl. The main thing was that they had also asked these doctors. Everyone said that she was fully responsible for Elder Qi's health. After something happened, other than the culprit, of course she would take responsibility for it. However, after all, she was someone who was involved with the Li family, so they couldn't be too ruthless. As for face, it was fine to give some face. Unless Li Junwei treated Jing Yunzhao as his granddaughter-in-law, he wouldn't care about the life and death of a little girl. Chapter 1289. Jing Yunzhao looked at the group of old people chattering away in front of her. Seeing that the flames of war had once again burned her head, she sighed helplessly. Jing Yunzhao, since General Li has given you a chance to explain, then say it. However, don't try to shift your responsibility. The doctors present are all witnesses. It's impossible that everyone has wronged you, one of them said. The others took a few sips of tea and waited quietly. The appearance of these people was simply like a group of retired emperors discussing politics. Since everyone has given me a chance to speak, then I can only offend. Jing Yunzhao faintly said before continuing, it's true that I'm responsible for Elder Qi, and I won't renege on what I should be responsible for. However, from what I know, there are a few of you who have specially found famous doctors for Elder Qi, but why hasn't the old man's illness recovered even after so many years? Before I came, the medicine that Elder Qi used were painkillers produced by my company. You clearly know that Elder Qi's life is not happy, but you still forced these doctors to save his life. Although it's for the country and family, isn't it too cruel? It was noble to serve the country, but to put it bluntly, she was just worried that these people would feel indignant. If no one suppressed them, there would be a coup d'état. At that time, the country that she had worked so hard to stabilize would be in chaos again. So, it was still for this group of people. If they could stay calm and have the same awareness as Elder Qi wouldn't have been in so much pain before. She had personally treated Elder Qi's illness. Of course, she knew what it was like when the pain came. Qi Yugua was an old man. Every time he was in pain, he would grit his teeth and sweat. He was extremely dispirited. Had these people seen it before? They only hoped that he would live and guard for a while, but always be on guard. They were prepared to fight for power after Elder Chi's death. We're talking about your matter now. Don't talk nonsense. Besides, where there's life, there's hope. So what if he can't save his life? Euthanasia. One of them snorted and said sarcastically. Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but sneer. I've asked Elder Chi if he felt that all these years of suffering were worth it. When Elder Chi answered my question, his body had already taken a huge turn for the better. The pain had lessened by a lot and it didn't flare up as frequently. However, even at that time, his attitude was still the same. He would rather live for 100 years and return to the earth. He didn't want to be a half-dead tortoise. All of you are inextricably linked to Elder Chi. How could you not know what he was thinking? Jing Yunzhao wasn't spouting nonsense. Instead, he was repeating Elder Chi's words. At that time, when Elder Chi was playing chess with her, she casually asked. She thought that the old man would feel that it was worth it to suffer for so long in exchange for the safety of the older generation. However, unexpectedly, he was only willing to live for 100 years at most. 100 years ago, he could still bear it, but later, that kind of pain was simply inhuman, so he didn't want to endure it like this. If he had to do it all over again, even if he knew that she had the ability to cure him, he wouldn't wait. He would find a way to quickly bury himself in the ground before anyone noticed. Jing Yunzhao's words carried a questioning tone, making these people's expressions turn ugly. In other places, they were heroes. However, they were ashamed to face Elder Chi. This was something they were well aware of, so they felt guilty. No matter how much they quibbled, it was useless. Elder Chi's years of hard work have indeed made us admire and feel guilty. However, that is that. We will naturally repent in front of Elder Chi's grave. However, before that, you have to bear your responsibility. Chapter 1290. When he finished speaking, he was ready to arrest her, but when Li Junwei saw this, he shouted coldly and stopped him. I don't think this has much to do with her. Zhou Ming, the one who poisoned him, has already been arrested. Let her go. I heard that Elder Chi had a good chat with her before he passed away. The two of them could be considered friends despite the difference in age. Elder Chi's body hasn't even turned cold, so it's not appropriate for you to arrest this girl. Besides, what do you think the law is? The so-called responsibility is just a verbal agreement. This girl didn't even make any medical mistakes. What crime are you arresting her for? Li Junwei said directly. With their status, it would not be difficult for them to capture a little girl. Old Li, she's guilty of dereliction of duty. Dereliction of duty. What position does she have? She's just a small doctor. It's a righteous act to treat Elder Chi. Until now, she hasn't even received a salary. Li Junwei sneered and said, if you insist on saying that she's derelict of duty, that's fine. Take out a few contracts. I'll see if there's a military pledge to take full responsibility. If there is, you can arrest her however you want. If there isn't, whoever dares to touch my good granddaughter-in-law, don't blame me for doing anything extreme in the future. When Li Junwei finished speaking, the surroundings fell silent. Generally, what do you mean by that? Are you threatening us? The others weren't to be trifled with. Yes, I'm threatening you. So what? Don't say that you don't understand me. You know what kind of temper I have. Back then, I dared to go to the mountains alone and wipe out hundreds of enemies to save Chiyugwa. Now, I'm not afraid to use my head to go against you. I see that you have so many children and grandchildren. You've all lived a good life, haven't you? Do you think that I, Old Li, only have one grandson, so you want to strangle this only child to death? If that's the case, then we'll go our separate ways. Whatever you want, I'll fight with you. Whatever you want, I'll fight with you. Are you satisfied? Lee Junwei's voice was as loud as a bell. When he spoke, it was so loud that it hurt people's eardrums. The most important thing wasn't the loud voice, but the shocking content. Lee Junwei was a pervert in their eyes. He was the person who was the most similar to Chi Yugwe. If he really hated someone, he would make a mess of the other party even if he didn't want his life. Back then, the team led by Chi Yugwe was completely annihilated. No one knew if Chi Yugwe himself was dead or alive. At that time, Lee Junwei was still a teenager. He actually dared to go to the mountain alone and bring Chi Yugwe back. At that time, Lee Junwei didn't feel any pain even though he had 2 or 3 bullet wounds on his body. Back then, many young nurses were moved to tears by his heroic act. Although a few decades had passed, there were some things that were still fresh in his mind even now. Old Lee, you're angry, aren't you? We just want to take her for routine questioning. Why do you look like you're afraid that we'll swallow her alive? Immediately, someone spoke up. Lee Junwei knew in his heart that if Chi Yugwe was killed by Jing Yunzhao, then even if he broke the heavens, no one would touch this principle. But now, she was not a criminal, so letting her go was just a matter of convenience for these people. Although Chi Yugwe probably wasn't dead, and Jing Yunzhao wouldn't be caught when the time came, who knew how long that old thing Chi Yugwe would hide? What if Jing Yunzhao was secretly killed by these people before he could show up? Who would he cry to? Chapter 1291. After someone spoke up, even if the others were unwilling, they still agreed after some thought. They felt that there was no need to oppose Lee Junwei over a little girl. Old Lee, you really need to change your temper. We are all old comrades of yours, so we are used to it. But if it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to tolerate your attitude, said one of them. Lee Junwei was also quite crafty. Lee Junwei was also cunning, so he immediately said, we are all in the same boat. Even if we didn't go through life and death together, after all, we have been through that era. I have a straightforward temper, and I will say whatever I want. I also treat you as one of us, so I don't want to restrain myself. Of course, you guys have been living a comfortable life for so many years, so you may not be affected by what I did in the past. If you are angry with me, I, Old Lee, will apologize to all of you and just let it go. Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched when he heard that. Lee Junwei was not a boorish person. In fact, he could be considered a shrewd person. He might seem straightforward, but in truth, he was quite cunning. His words were not only praising the past, but he was also mocking the current state of these people. Even if he wanted to let go of what had happened earlier, he was not implying that his words were nothing. Instead, he was implying that the words of others were also implying that his words were nothing. They were all smart people, and they were able to understand what he was implying. Of course, it wasn't good to talk about something so secretive in the open. In addition, Senior Chi had just passed away. If they started arguing, they would become a laughingstock. Although everyone wanted to fight for power, they would still try their best to restrain themselves so as to not cause too much of a commotion. It was like brothers fighting over family property. It was fine to argue behind closed doors, but if an outsider were to interfere, they would be considered idiots. At that time, their family would no longer be around. What was the point of fighting? Old Lee, you said that girl is your granddaughter-in-law. Since when did Xiaoyan get married? Why aren't we aware of this? Asked someone as the atmosphere eased. He isn't married yet. She is just a girl I have decided on, said Lee Junwei with a hearty laugh. But isn't she the successor of the Jing clan? Old Li, the Jing clan only has this one child left. I thought this girl would be looking for a son-in-law. After all, it would be a pity if a great clan with 1,000 years of history ended because of your Li clan. Another person said while stroking his beard. In the past, he felt that although the Li family had Li Xiaoyun as an outstanding talent, he was already 27 or 28 years old and had yet to settle down. Perhaps there was something wrong with his heart. But now, he had actually abducted such a little girl without a word. It was really infuriating. But fortunately, the Jing family was no longer the same as before. Their family wealth was long gone, and they only had medical skills. Jing Yunzhao didn't know what to say when the elders were talking, so he was invited to sit at the side and listen quietly. Li Junwei didn't get angry when he heard that. Instead, he laughed and said, being the son-in-law of the Jing clan is a glorious thing. Back then, the Jing clan saved many people, right? Even if we're repaying a debt of gratitude, we should let the Jing family have a successor. This old man has long thought about it. This girl is still young. Her first child will have the surname Jing. It doesn't matter if she has more children in the future. If she has a few more, the Li clan will take advantage of the situation and pass on my name to the next generation, said Li Junwei. The moment he said that, everyone's expression turned odd. Who wouldn't want a successor? Who wouldn't want to have a house full of children and grandchildren and live a prosperous life? Why did Li Junwei have to be such a weirdo? Old Li, you are really magnanimous. Chapter 1292. Everyone secretly clicked their tongues, but at the same time, they couldn't understand. They felt that Li Junwei was muddle-headed to actually push his future great-grandson out. How could following one's surname be the same as following someone else's? How could he not feel uncomfortable in his heart? There was also that Li Xiaoyun. Perhaps there were people below who didn't know of his ability, but these old things all knew. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he had been conferred the title of Major General at such a young age. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was unprecedented. Back then, many of them had wanted to marry into the Li family, but this Li Xiaoyun really wasn't a good thing. He bullied their family's girls until they were pitiful. Until now, not many dared to go to the Li family. Because of this, they had also suspected Li Xiaoyun's sexual orientation all these years. After all, it was simply abnormal for him to be able to bully so many soft girls. Jing Yunzhao didn't know what these people were thinking at this time. Otherwise, she would definitely be unable to hold back her laughter. With Li Junwei's help, Jing Yunzhao also retreated unscathed. From the beginning to the end, Qi Yugua didn't appear, and those who knew that Qi Yugua was still alive were all Elder Qi's trusted aides. There was absolutely no possibility of news spreading, and those doctors didn't know the situation at all, so it was impossible for them to casually speak. Jing Yunzhao was clear in her heart. Don't look at how these old people seem to be happy and harmonious when gathered together. In reality, they had already made their moves. It's just that whoever was ruthless or vicious would be the one to suffer in the end. However, these things had nothing to do with her. She only needed to take care of her own 1-move-3 fun land. After everyone left, the soldiers on the mountain slowly withdrew. In less than 3 days, even Qi Yugua's trusted aides were all gone. After all, if they were left, it would more or less make people's imaginations run wild. Another thing was this funeral. Li Xiaoyun found an old man who had just passed away at the foot of the mountain to impersonate him. The group of people actually didn't recognize him. Li Junwei and Li Xiaoyun directly took responsibility. The others were already very busy. Since these two people didn't fight for power, it was best for them to handle this matter. However, Li Junwei suggested that it was better to keep the matter of Elder Qi's death a secret for the time being. Elder Qi, are you eager to take this opportunity to conceal your identity? Seeing Qi Yugua's extremely good mood, Jing Yunzhao said speechlessly. Qi Yugua laughed. It was as if the dark clouds had parted to reveal the sun. If that's the case, that would be for the best. However, I also know that it's impossible, but I can still relax for the next few days. You haven't fully recovered yet. Jing Yunzhao said helplessly. He was most afraid of this kind of old urchin. Elder Qi was usually very cooperative, but when he was stubborn, there was nothing he could do. It's all right. I'll stay at Changshuo's house for the next few days. Come with me. It just so happens that it won't hinder you two from being lovey-dovey, Qi Yugua said as he stroked his beard. Li Junwei's eyes lit up. That's great. It would be best if his grandson could move quickly and eat up this girl. The sooner they got engaged and got married, the sooner he wouldn't have to worry about his granddaughter-in-law running away. Jing Yunzhao glanced at Li Xiaoyun and saw a sly smile in his eyes. Her heart skipped a beat. However, she was indeed indispensable for Elder Qi's illness. No matter where Elder Qi went during this period of time, she would definitely follow him. After the matter was settled, they set off on the same day. As there was no large group following them, it was not so eye-catching. Jing Yunzhao was always paying attention and didn't feel anyone following them. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.